is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
In the Michigan territory, Stroud winds up, throws a deep ball sideline, caught, touchdown, Marvin Harrison Jr.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Quarterback keeper, rising with a seam. He's into the red zone. He's inside the 10.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
If you're Tulane. Pratt gonna take out his do-it-yourself kit and picks up the first down.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Delora, deep down the middle, got his man. Cowing, touchdown, Arizona.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
39-yarder, blocked. Picked up. The Cowboys, Corey Black. Hit by the turf monster, but can't be stopped. Another special teams touchdown for the Oklahoma State Cowboys.
Now here's David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. Let's start another week. 365 Sports. Paul Catalina is currently waiting on whether or not he will be selected to a jury. And so I spoke with him just for a couple of seconds because he can't say much, but this is a big boy trial, and he is among probably 100 or so who are trying to be selected for this trial. And so he's out, at least it appears, for most, if not all, of today. And if he gets selected to this one, he might be gone for a few days. Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. You know what I love about today? Just like back a few weeks ago, the coaches poll came out. But as we get closer, even though realignment is not a dead issue because of what the AAC might do or the ACC and what happens on the 15th tomorrow with Florida State. And then on top of that, you never know what the Pac-12 or the Mountain West. And in fact, we have Trey Smith, who covers the American Conference today at 3:35. He'll join the show. But, Craig, here is the top 25 that is out, college football's top 25. Georgia, two-time defending champions, trying to do something no one has ever done before in major college football. Michigan, their highest preseason ranking since 1991. Ohio State, Alabama, their lowest preseason ranking. Think about this. Since 2009, the year they won the national title, and then there's LSU. Teams from the Big 12, Texas at 11. You have Utah, who will be at 14, Kansas State, TCU, Oklahoma, 16, 17, and 20. There's A&M at 23. Right outside, which would have been 26th, the Red Raiders of Lubbock and Texas Tech University. There is, and we'll break this down. Craig, your thoughts about a couple of them, if you want, inside that image of the top 25.
Yeah, I mean, Bama being at 4 immediately jumped out to me just because we are so used to seeing them at 1 or 2. And so to see them, behind 3 teams, that would be great for most programs. But for Alabama, that does sort of seem like, whoa, wait a second, why are they all the way at 4? So, yeah, that's wild to see that. I mean, Georgia's clearly, the program now in college football. But, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, all that makes sense. Just strange to see Bama kind of sliding a little bit. Cool to see some teams like, Southern Cal and Florida State who haven't necessarily, been in the mix consistently these last few years. To have them in the top 10, I think is, cool to see that once again. Texas at 11. It's pretty high, man. I mean, that's in line with the big expectations that I think people have for them, clearly. And I know that I do. I know that I have them as my Big 12 champs. I think, obviously the majority of people do. That's why they were the, preseason favorites, which hasn't been the case for many years now. But it's just all the stars seem to have aligned. I mean, everywhere you look, they've got talent, but more than just the talking point that they've typically had of, oh, they've got talent. No, they've got like real deal talent all over the place. Not to mention, even a minor concern like, well, Gary Patterson's he's back, or potentially Wayne coming back. So I just feel like everything's kind of going their way. But 11, that's pretty high. Look at Utah. I mean, you talk about the great story that the Pac-12 is going to be this year, but even looking beyond that with knowing that the Utes are going to be in the Big 12 come next season, good to see them representing up in the top half of the poll. Beyond that, K-State, TCU, I think both of those teams are going to be really, really good. Oregon State, I know that it's a tough time for them right now, but as we've been mentioning, they got a hell of a football team that's going to help them wade through whatever this nonsense is that they're dealing with conference realignment-wise. But they've got a special football season potentially in store. OU, the closer we get to the season, the more I'm warming up to the idea of them being better than I've expected throughout the offseason. And, hey, good for Tulane there in the back end of the rankings there and just in front of them, A&M with Jimbo and some huge expectations. So, yeah, I mean, we could unpack this for the next 3 hours, but there's a lot of interesting things about that poll.
SEC 6 teams, Big 12 with 4, Big 10, Pac-12 with 5, ACC 3, AAC with Tulane at 1, and Independent Notre Dame at 1. Lowest preseason ranking for Alabama since 2009. That might be historic, even when teams have dominated during certain rivalries. Also, Oklahoma has had the most preseason number 1 rankings in AP poll history. We do have Chip Towers from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on Georgia 1. Oklahoma, Alabama from 10 to 9. Ohio State. In fact, Alabama during this run has been ranked number 1 6 times, I think, since 2012 or 13. Then there's Ohio State, USC, Florida State, Nebraska, Notre Dame at 5, then Florida, Miami, Clemson, Georgia, and Michigan. As good as Georgia's been, this is only the second time in their schools and program history that they've been ranked number 1 in the preseason poll. Of Herschel Walker year, they weren't ranked number 1. He jumped into college football with both feet in a spectacular freshman year. Michigan a couple of different times. Now, which top 10 team do you think, if you wouldn't mind, Garrett, put it back up, which top 10 team will finish unranked every year for the past 21 seasons except 2019? At least one preseason top 10 team finished unranked. Last year, 3. A&M, Baylor, and Oklahoma started inside the top 10, and all 3 of them ended outside of the poll.
Yeah, that's crazy to think that Baylor was a top 10 team last year. Like that's wild given how the season ended up going, but that's why it was even more nightmarish as it went along, was that they started off with such great expectations. I'd probably have to sit and think on this a little bit, but limited to the top 10, I mean, I feel pretty good about that top 5. And it would have to come from that second half. I don't know, maybe Penn State or Washington. I think, there's a case to be had for 5 through 10, or 6 through 10, excuse me. And I'm sure there's cases to be made, for one of the top 5 or a couple of the top 5 maybe as well. But I don't really see it from the top 5. But I do see, the possibilities there in that second half. And I don't know, maybe more so with Penn State and Washington than I do the 3 others. So, yeah, go ahead and give me them, but that's something that maybe if I stewed on it long enough, I'd flip it around a little bit. But just on the surface, that's where my head's at.
The Big Ten has numbers 2, 3, and 7 inside the top 10. The SEC has numbers 1, 4, and 5 inside the top 10. So there you have the Pac-12 with SC and Washington. So 3 of the top 7 of the Big Ten, perhaps that will be hard to hold up, or 3 of the top 5 in the SEC, maybe that will be hard to hold up, with no, to me, arguments with much of what we see at that point. Now, the opposite. Last year, half of the final top 25 teams to finish inside the top 10 teams that were unranked. The opposite. TCU, Tennessee, Penn State, Washington, and Tulane all began last year unranked and finished inside of the top 25. Yeah, in fact, inside the top 10. That's another Brett McMurphy special, a little historical trend. Now, here's from Brett McMurphy again. If you're looking for a national champion, history says it's either Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, USC, Penn State. That makes a lot of sense. But since 2004, every national champ was ranked among the AP preseason polls top 7 other than Auburn in 2010 and FSU in 2013. So if you're in the top 7 other than twice since 2004, nearly 20 years, one of those teams has won the national title except a couple of different years.
Well, I mean, that sounds crazy, and it sounds like it's an amazing stat, but I mean, is it really all that amazing when you think about it, given how consistently it's been kind of the same teams that win the national titles? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you're looking at the odds this year and you go, all right, you can have the rest of the field, but give me Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, SC, and Penn State. Do you think I have a good chance of getting that right? I think I have a pretty good chance of getting that right. So that is a fun statistic, and there's something to that. But I do also think it's not like the Super Bowl, where it's like you have to really guess on a year-to-year basis of who's going to be great. In college football, yeah, there's misses. We didn't have TCU ranked and they ended up in the national championship game. That's a pretty massive whiff on everybody's part. We had Baylor top 10 and they finished 6 and 7. That's a pretty massive whiff on everybody's part. But if you're picking a national champion in college football, it's like, yeah, give me every, major blue blood who's won one in the last, 10 years and others who have been, flirting with it or have won titles themselves. And I feel like I'm going to have a pretty good shot. Now, I could see it. I could see it potentially being, a Texas and sneaks in there who's not in the top 7 or whatever, I guess, or let's see, like a Clemson or a Washington or a Tennessee or something like that. But, yeah, give me Georgia, give me Bama, give me Ohio State, give me Michigan, LSU, Southern Cal, Penn State. I think I'm probably going to have the national champion in that mix more often than not.
But now, Garrett, the 2 exceptions, 2010 Auburn and 2013 Florida State. Who were their quarterbacks?
Jameis and Cam.
Yeah. All right. So those are once in a lifetime. Cam was a once in a lifetime guy for Auburn, and Jameis had a spectacular year for Florida State. So the quarterback play allowed them to elevate from where they started the year. FSU was ranked 11, and then obviously Auburn in 2010 when Cam was still kind of an unknown. Everyone knew how good he was, but they were ranked 22nd.
Yeah, he's a pretty major star. I mean, Jameis was too. So they had, I'd say, once in a lifetime. You can debate that, I guess, because those programs have had a lot of talented players roll through. But, I mean, those are about as, once in a lifetime type players that both those programs can boast here recently. So, yeah, all it takes, same thing in college football, not as much in the NFL, is you have that transcendent superstar, and he can take you a long ways. And both those guys certainly did that for those programs.
All right. One more college football note, actually a couple, but Joseph Duarte, who covers Houston, hated to see this note. Houston freshman running back Rashawn Sanford, who was record-breaking at Harker Heights High School in Killeen last year. They made a run to the quarterfinals. Actually, it might have been the semifinals. Will miss the rest of the year, suffering an injury in practice, according to running backs coach Mike Jinks. Hate that because he is unbelievably electric, and so Houston loses a young, true freshman running back in Rashawn Sanford. And finally, this note from Jim Williams. If Florida State, remember, tomorrow's the 15th, they need to make a decision if they're going to try to leave. If they tomorrow figure out a way to exit the ACC, then we might see new college football's landscape. I think UCLA and Coach Chip Kelly was right when he said 64 top programs in football should not be linked to a conference allowed to be split 32 teams in each league with playoffs. He's talking about a pro-style option. Maybe tomorrow Florida State could lead that way. I don't ever see it going to that, but I do appreciate Jim's opinion on this, and that could happen. It needs to happen if Florida State is going to try to bolt and go somewhere else and buck that system with the exit fees and grant of rights.
Yeah, unless they've got a huge magic trick up their sleeve, they're staying put for the time being, which I think has kind of been the logical conclusion this entire time, given that grant of rights. I don't care how much anybody from the athletic department comes out or how many Zooms they do stating their intention. The action's what's more important, and they've certainly had plenty of action behind the scenes, but nothing on the surface to indicate that, tomorrow's going to be a day where all of a sudden, like, all hell breaks loose and they're, starting to make their way out the door. And I believe I read earlier that, at this point they would need to call a meeting, and to do so you need 24 hours notice. Well, I mean, what are they going to do now at this point, right? So that does seem like it's probably not happening based on all the things that I just mentioned or what I just mentioned. But, I mean, that's a story that's not going to go away. I know Trev Albert, a Big Ten AD there for Nebraska. He was somebody who, throughout like the past couple years, I remember when the Pac-12 stuff was going on, which is still going on, but when they were, adamant that nothing was ever going to happen to any of their teams and all that nonsense, Trev Alberts was one of those ADs that wasn't speaking on that specifically, but was saying in general that, realignment's going to continue and it's, only going to, get quicker and all that. I mean, he was talking, and it didn't really like say anything so specific that you thought he was super tuned into what was happening out west, maybe. But obviously, the Big Ten was paying attention. Obviously, he was right because they've already added Oregon and Washington since the last time he spoke. And then he spoke again, and he said that history is unkind to conferences that have not had the courage to expand. He talked about how even though realignment's broken up rivalries and conferences, that's kind of the deal, that if you don't have the courage to expand or change, then history's not very kind to you. He also said, I don't believe it's done when talking about realignment. It's never been done. It's more likely than not that there will be continued periods of angst. I believe that the next go-round will be far more disruptive than anything we're currently engaged in. We need to prepare ourselves mentally for that. So that was from Nebraska's Trev Alberts, who's been very public when he's had these little chats that he thinks realignment is going on or is going to continue on. And then this, after the Oregon and Washington chapter, he says, the most disruptive part's still to come. Well, that would jive with something along the lines of what Jim's talking about. And certainly with the ACC part of the equation, with the Pac still in limbo, I mean, there's still a lot of room for more disruption.
And it seems like it's probably going to be never-ending, just like it has been, it seems like, for a long time. Chip Towers, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, joins us on 365 Sports. Georgia ranked number 1 in the country, looking for the unthinkable. The three-peat in major college athletics or major college football has not happened. Chip, your thoughts? This was as much of a no-brainer as some of those years Alabama was ranked number 1. And is it hard for you? You've been covering this game a long, long time. Nobody, and there have been some dominant dynasties, has ever been able to rip off 3 in a row national titles.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm actually have been working on for the last week or so, kind of a little bit of a historical deep dive into that whole Minnesota phenomenon, 1940, 34, 35, 36, to now. And, there's been many teams, Alabama being one of them, that have had the opportunity to win 3 in a row, but nobody's been able to do it in the poll era, such as it is since 1936, since the AP has kind of been the dominant poll. And it's really interesting when you dive into that, and Georgia itself, had a dominant patch back in the 1980s. You talk to those players that played for Georgia from 1980 to 83, and I've spoken to a lot of them, they swear they should have won 3 in a row. They won 3 SEC championships in a row with Herschel Walker, and lost 1 game each of those years, a heartbreaker in a bowl game and another one in the regular season to a Clemson team that went on to win the national championship, or they might have achieved that feat. So it's crazy that they're in this position. It's even crazier, really, that the schedule is what it is. I mean, I think it makes it as achievable as any of those other teams have had a chance to. I believe there's 7 over the course of that time that had the opportunity to win 3 in a row. I don't have my work in front of me, sorry. So if that's wrong, I apologize. But it's something like that. And certainly Georgia has as good a shot as any of them of pulling it off.
Chip, when you look at what could occur down the line, obviously we got a long way to go, haven't even kicked off yet. But do you think it's more, is there an obstacle that's more inward or outward, like an opponent or another program that you think most stands in Georgia's way of pulling off this never-before-done three-peat?
Well, all of those, really. I mean, certainly with Kirby Smart, he knows how to manage this situation, thanks to his time with Nick Saban and really his time here. He's Mr. Adage, Mr. Catchphrase. And this year's is better never rest, an homage to the All Blacks, the most successful rugby, the most successful professional franchise there is. They're borrowing a lot of stuff from them this year. He is hard and tough about, talks about complacency is the greatest enemy of all. And that comes straight from Nick Saban, and they've managed that over there. But, the reality of competing in the SEC year in and year out, is the real challenge. And, Georgia has the resident pitfalls on its schedule. And I think maybe an underplayed aspect of this team is they're actually pretty young. I mean, you don't send 25 players to the NFL draft the last two seasons without getting pretty young, because a lot of those guys were underclassmen as it was. If you look at this team right now, a lot of the guys that we have circled as stars are sophomores, true sophomores, a couple of redshirt sophomores. There's a few seniors. Cedric Van Pran, the center and All-American candidate, that was a big deal getting him back. And the two interior down defensive linemen, I think, were a really big deal for Georgia as well. When you think about their defense, which has 8 starters back, holding up again. But it's a pretty young team. And so once you get into it, you never know. They're going to be double-digit favorites in at least 11 of the 12 games. I doubt if there'll be a double-digit favorite on the road at Tennessee, but that game's very late in the season, so you never know where either team will be at that point. But the schedule for a young team just sets up perfect, because, you don't get into conference play till South Carolina comes to town September 16th, and 3 of your first 4 are non-conference nobodies. So they have a chance to sort of, have a preseason to get the kinks out, and when they get into the middle season, when the challenges will come.
You mentioned young. Their quarterback Stetson Bennett is out. He played, in fact, he's gone. He's played in a preseason game over the weekend. Is that where it starts? I'm sure they have, of course, their cupboard is filled with talent at every position, but is that the one that might be or is there another position, Chip, that is a concern for them?
Well, yeah, I actually think they're in tandem here, but obviously quarterback. Anytime it's a crapshoot. Anytime you change quarterbacks, I mean, no matter what anybody says about Carson Beck, redshirt junior, who I fully expect to at least start the first game. We'll see what happens after that. But Georgia has a strong quarterback room, and probably more importantly, they have strong players all around them. But they are they are having to break in new starters at both tackle positions. Now, Georgia's been kind of freaky with their offensive line recruiting. I mean, it's impressive. There are a lot of former 5-stars. All those guys are gargantuan, 6'7", 350-pound sophomore Marius Mims is going to start at right tackle. And, there's not many teams in the country that have anybody like him. Ernest Green, who probably started at left tackle, a redshirt freshman, but a 5-star whose dad played for a long time in the NFL, and he was redshirted recovering from knee surgery coming out of high school. He's, and the guys they're competing with, have the same type of pedigree. That's what's impressive about them. But they're different. The running backs are beat up right now. I love their wide receiving core, and you're changing offensive coordinators too to Mike Bobo. So that whole offensive side of the ball, I would call it maybe not a question mark, but they have some proving to do. What are they going to be, and how are they going to do it? Now, defensively, I think they're solid as a rock again. I mean, you got 8 starters back, really strong up the middle, which I think is really important in football, just like it is every sport. Right up the middle of the field, they're really strong. And they've done some tweaking in the secondary. They got solid all-stars in the inside linebacker positions. And, they got a bunch of – they don't have a Jalen Carter, but not many people do, but they've got some seniors and redshirt juniors. In fact, they got a 6-year guy, defensive end, in Tramel Walthour. So, they're built to stop the run again and to make some big plays on defense, and that always helps.
Chip, thank you very much. Can't wait the games to be played, and we're right around the corner, just a couple of weeks for the first weekend, and then, of course, early in September. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Chip Towers with us from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Thought the timing with the AP poll out, Georgia ranked number 1. We went over the poll very much from start to finish. A couple of notes later in the show. One is on Lane Kiffin saying something over the weekend about minority football coaches and pointed at the SEC and the Big 12, and he was off base as far as evidence or facts. And then also the Bounce House has something they're going to help be able to raise some money, NIL, for their student athletes, which is pretty cool as well. We have Levi Caraway and Jack McKenzie, Garrett Ross in the studio today on 365 Sports. Coming up next, he covers the American Athletic Conference, and Trey Smith, I've kind of noticed him over the last couple of weeks on some thoughts as the American Conference looks at their future. Are they going to be adding? Where are they in all this? And where is Mike Oresco, their commissioner? Trey Smith, next on 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace went online every Monday. They put up their specials for the week, and especially most of this that affects what they have in their butcher shop, but not everything. Bacon ends and pieces for $1.99 a pound. Pork steak, $2.15 a pound. They have select choice in prime New York strip from $8.99 to $16.99 a pound. Chicken drumsticks at 99 cents a pound. Swiss cheese, cheddar cheese, Colby Jack cheese, smoked cheddar cheese, Munster cheese, all of that available with special prices anywhere under about $5 or $6 a pound and less. $10% off on all the Boar's Head lunch meats. And then in the background of their Facebook page, you have Nicoletto's, the pasta company, with all of the various pasta you may want with whatever dish it might be. It's Waco Custom Marketplace, full-service butcher shop and bakery, the Bauer family at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
During the Make This the Summer event, save big on a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $3,500 plus 2.9% for 72 months. Or a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with employee pricing for all plus 1.9% for 72 months. And an extra $1,000 rebate. Or if that's not enough, get a 2023 Jeep Compass 10% off MSRP. That's right, and no payments for 90 days on all offers. Find the Jeep that fits you at Allen Samuels in Waco.
The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Trey Smith covers the American Conference. CollegeGameTime.com. Content creator, also credentialed media, joins. Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak on 365 Sports. Trey, thank you very much for your time. Who among these conferences, in your opinion, will add people first or most likely to? The Pac-12, the Mountain West, the American Conference, or none of the above?
Am I allowed to answer Stanford is the ultimate domino?
Sure you can. Absolutely. Yeah.
And maybe if I may, could I provide a little context to the tweet I believe y'all touched on Friday's show, which I appreciate that very much, as it pertains to kind of where we're at in this process with the Americans' and sudden involvement in realignment season?
Yeah, you can. That's why we have you on the show today.
Perfect. All right. So first off, thank you for having me, and thank you for taking some time for the American Athletic Conference. And I know you guys actually give them coverage beyond just realignment. So I've someone who follows your show, very much appreciate that. But so Thursday night, I put that tweet up, and essentially what I was doing was providing an update in regards to some of the things that I communicated on my show the day before, right? Because last week, early on, there was a lot of smoke around Stanford and Cal to the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. Mm-hmm. And so Wednesday, I just did a show exploring what Oregon State and Washington State to the American might look like. Simple as that. Obviously, geographically speaking, the Mountain West Conference makes the most sense. However, I was just looking at some other factors like media revenue, exposure, and things like that. No big deal. Well, then on Thursday, so that was the Wednesday show. Then on Thursday, the news broke that the ACC voted no to voting. And it seemed like things between the ACC and Stanford Cal were cooling down. Well, at that point, I received some information that I believe to be credible. And it was, in a nutshell, one, there's mutual interest between the PAC, particularly Stanford, and the AAC. Two, there has been communication between the two. Three, Stanford is the ultimate domino. And four, it will be an all or nothing type of deal. And so for me, you know, when I want to make sure everyone understanding my standpoint, when I was saying things are trending, it wasn't so much, hey, things are trending for the American to land these four schools. It was more of, if things are trending from the American's perspective, that it's going to be all four of them or none at all. And so that kind of clarifies that. Then we go into the weekend, and that's when we find out now Oliver Luck is consulting with the PAC which I don't know if y'all have seen it yet, but Oliver Luck was probably a pre-scheduled months ago speaking event, but he was at FAU today talking with their football team, which, the irresponsible conclusions my mind wants to draw from seeing that are going insane. But as I said, that was probably pre-scheduled long ago. But so he's hired as the consultant, and then a lot of rumors started flying around over the weekend, and so then yesterday morning, I actually had a long conversation with a friend of mine who I know is also a friend of y'all's show, Jim Williams. I think you actually had his tweet up earlier on this show. And we were kind of talking through some different things and, some information I have, information he has. And basically what he kind of shared with me was that Oliver Luck is going to fully, thoroughly vet out every possible option. And then I don't know if y'all saw Jim's report on this. I don't know if it was this morning or in the middle of the night, but basically what he had said was Oliver Luck will be starting the process of working on what teams should be added to the Pac-4 from the American and the Mountain. A list of about 12 teams will be reviewed. This does not mean a partnership or merger is off the table. It just means that they have a process in place. So from my vantage point, we got two options here. And kind of getting back to your original question, who's the first to add lose teams? If the Pac chooses to try and backfill with the Mountain West and the AAC, yeah, that's on the table. But I have two questions. One, who's paying those exit fees? And two, who's the media partner going to be? The last time I checked, the Pac couldn't land a media deal when they had teams that were desired by the Big 12 and the Big 10. And so now we're going to repeat the cycle with teams that are desired by the Mountain West and the American. So that's one question. And then are we so sure that a media deal obtained by a backfilled Pac conference, will that command better exposure than what the AAC has right now? If they go full, something full streaming with Apple, like was thrown out there when they were trying to salvage the conference earlier this summer. So those are just some thoughts, around that first option. And then, of course, you have option two, which is a full-blown merger. And there are a lot of things flying around this as well. But for me, a true merger, if they do a true merger, the American Conference makes the most sense. And, you have a TV network already in place. The conference covers all time slots, and it gives ESPN that Pacific time zone, which I would think could be used in leveraging, exercising that clause and renegotiate the contract. You got big city and AAU representation, and you preserve the Auto 5 status. Now, I understand the Auto 5 status has lost a lot of its luster with the NIL and things of that nature as far as what its original intent was for. However, that Auto 5 status, which we like to call Power 5, it means something in recruiting. And recruiting is the lifeblood of every college football program in America. And so if you have an opportunity to save your Auto 5 status, a full merger with the American Conference gives you 18 votes in that pot. Because, the pushback I've seen is, well, they're going to get voted out anyway. Fair enough. Maybe so. But to kind of dispute something else that's floating around that Mike Oresco is considering offloading teams in his conference to make a merger work, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And then, of course, as I said at the top, Stanford is the X factor. And so I think the order of dominoes that need to fall are, first, is the ACC door closed? Is it 100% closed? Door number one. Door number two, I do think there will be another Hail Mary by Stanford to the Big Ten. Okay? So the door number two is, can the Big Ten be reengaged? I don't think so. I think most people will probably agree with that as well, but it's on the table. And then, would a merger be more enticing than just staying independent if you're Stanford? And that's where I think Oresco is in position right now. If he can lay out a plan for Oliver Luck, okay, basically potting or putting together a schedule module with the big city schools and the AAU institutions and saying, here's the type of schedule we could accommodate with Stanford involving the other 3 Pac schools. And then, at that point, I believe Stanford would be the ultimate decider. Are they willing to play with the AAU and big city schools of the AAC or not?
Yeah, Troy, man, there's a lot to unpack from just the entire scenario, and as you laid it out, there's a lot of moving pieces here. I mean, for example, you're speaking on the American and the Pac. I mean, where does the Mountain West fit in this as well? I mean, how much does that also complicate things that there's, the potential of looking their way? Obviously, there's discussions happening on their end, so it's almost like a Frankenstein conference, if you throw them into the equation as well.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, and I know Mountain West fans have kind of been coming from my head lately over on my channel, but here's just some questions I have in response to that. Can the Mountain West make as strong of a case as the American pertaining to AAU institutions and big city schools? The media deal currently with the American Conference is much more lucrative and much more exposure. And the key piece here, and this is just me and what I've heard, I have what I believe to be credible information that there's mutual interest between Stanford and Gang, and the rest of the Pac schools with the American Conference. I get it. Interest is very vague, right? Just because I'm interested in a woman doesn't mean I'm going to marry her. But just because, but I have not heard that specific statement as it pertains to Stanford and the Mountain West. And then, of course, realignment season changes and moves and shakes so quickly. It seems like it was a month ago, but it wasn't even a week ago when Dennis Dodd just released his report, basically shutting down this idea that there was this plan for the Mountain West and the AAC and the Pac to all kind of unite together. And according to his report, it put it off on San Diego State. And then I know there was something that sort of disputed that, but I don't know. I look at the media partners with the American Conference, or the partner, I should say, and you've got ESPN, who desperately needs that Pacific time zone. You look at the Mountain West media partners, and both of their media partners are pretty beefed up with the additions the Big 12 and the Big 10 just got. So I guess those are kind of my thoughts as it's a compare contrast the American with the Mountain West.
This is me probably just off the top of my head, but Stanford, are you saying Stanford and the AAC?
No.
Okay.
Let me clarify. What I'm saying is that there's mutual interest, at least as of, what was that, Thursday night? There is mutual interest between them and the conference. Like there's a mutual interest there, but like of the 4 remaining Pac schools, including Stanford. And I keep referencing Stanford because I believe, and this is just me, my belief is that really whatever they choose to do, everything else is going to kind of fall in line with that.
Yeah, I can see that. Where Stanford kind of.
Yeah, I don't think that Stanford's not going to become American. The Americans going to become the Pac-12 is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that they're going to make. I think you mentioned about trying to make one more run at the Big Ten or whatever. But it just seems like some of those doors now are closed, especially with the Big 12 and the Big 10. Craig?
Yeah, that's why they would potentially, like he said, make another run at it to see if that's not a door that could open once more, or else, the rest of it falls in place, like you said. Who of the American teams right now, the fan bases, do you think are the most chewing on their fingernails, given just all of the stuff swirling, kind of like, as the Pac is dealing with their stuff, those 4 teams, particularly though Oregon State, Washington State, been a very stressful time. Are there any teams that you see kind of having that feeling as well right now in the American view in the landscape?
Yeah, I think there's teams on both sides of the fence. Right? I think there's teams like SMU and Memphis that really want that Auto 5 nod. And I think those fan bases are very tuned into what's going on, sitting and going, okay, are the stars going to align in such a way where we're still able to join a conference that has that status or merge with a conference that has that status. Whether 2 years from now or a year from now, everyone's calling it the Power Two. I think you got fan bases like SMU and Memphis on that side. And then I think with some of the stuff that's circulating around, I should say the rumor mill, in terms of teams getting offloaded in order for a merger to happen, I think you have some of the newer additions that might be sitting out kind of going, well, wait a minute, are we going to get left out in the cold? Whether that be, one of the 6 additions such as Charlotte or North Texas or UTSA. I don't think so, personally. And to even speak a little bit more to that point, I think that it's very short-sighted to simply look at these new additions for what they are now versus what they could be with the additional revenue and resources that they'll be provided by the American Conference should things continue to stabilize, whether it's through a merger or just absorbing teams, whatever. I mean, look at a Houston or a UCF who is now, strong enough brand to get invites from the Big 12. Well, I mean, 10 years ago, that started with a conversation with Mike Oresco, getting those universities to commit to investing in those programs to become that over the course of time. And then now here they are in a Power 5 conference. I know that was a rabbit trail there, but that's just some thoughts on that.
Yeah, it is. And Oresco, of course, we remember when Texas-Oklahoma story popped, all of a sudden there was the thought that the American was trying to raid the Big 12, and it went the opposite way. He seems to be, you have Petiti, who's new, Kliavkoff right now, who's looking for an island, and then obviously Phillips in the ACC, which he's been around a long time. Sankey with what he does, he runs everything right now at the SEC. But it seems like that Oresco, it's not at that level of Yormark, who's done an incredible job. But I think he might be, if he ever goes somewhere else, he could run one of the Autonomy 5 conferences one day.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, too, about Oresco, and I think we've seen, and I don't want to undermine anybody, but as it kind of pertains how this realignment season has worked out, like, if you spend any time with Oresco, and I don't want to misrepresent myself, I'm not like good buddies with him or anything. I've interacted with him at AAC Media Days, but you don't have to be around him long to realize, I mean, he's a fiery guy. He's got a little bit of what in his neck, and he's going to fight for what he believes in. I mean, heck, the guy penned a master's thesis dissertation a couple of months ago about G5, T5. And so, if you don't think this guy is fighting for his conference and advocating for his conference to be a part of a potential merger that could involve that Auto 5 status, you're crazy. And I think that I agree with you 100% that he absolutely could run an Auto 5 conference.
Trey, thank you very much for your time. College Game Time also covers the American Athletic Conference, and he's right. We do, not just with the realignment. We've had many of the programs and or coaches in of course, Willie Fritz last year with a great run that Tulane made. And Tulane, speaking of back to the top 25, if they would have been anybody else that's inside the top 25, but with not Tulane on their jersey, yes, they lost people too, they would have been ranked in the top 10 or 12. And good luck to them as they try to...
Wait, what?
If Tulane's name was anyone else's name inside the top 25 and not Tulane, they would have been ranked probably twice as high as they were.
Why? Because they have a lot of people coming back or something? Or
they're good.
Yeah. I mean,
if put the name of
sure, if it's
Auburn,
Ohio State, yeah.
Ohio,
but I mean,
that's my point.
Yeah,
I get why, but if you could even put them, you could
say that though about I don't want to bog down that, but yeah, I mean you could say that for any number of teams, but yeah, I mean they definitely have probably the lowest profile of most of the teams in the top 25. So yeah, I guess if they were named Michigan, then yeah, they'd be number 3 because, well, they're Michigan, but they're getting some level of respect being in the top 25, and rightfully so. And yeah, you're right though. It's always at 24. It's not at 13 or it's not 15. It's 23, 22, somewhere like that. That's why I'm not a huge fan of the poll to begin with in the preseason, but I don't know a better way of doing things because if you just start with a clear board, then it's just going to be so all over the place based on all of the writers having their you almost have to have the template. for people to work off of it, because if you didn't have a template, there's not enough writers that know about all of these other teams. That's why it's kind of a silly exercise in so many ways to begin with, is that I know for a fact the guy beat writing covering Pittsburgh is not watching Big 12 football all day long while he's covering the Pittsburgh game, and therefore doesn't know how good TCU or Texas Tech really are compared to, and so it's sort of all over the place. So if you were to ask everybody to start with a clean slate, I don't think there's enough people to be able to fill out logical, concise top 25s the way that, the number of voters they have now. So I get it, but it's also an exercise where, you're Tulane, you're out, you got a good start, but if you were somebody else, you'd have about 10 spots higher,
And then they go to beat USC in the in the Cotton Bowl, and they were good doing it, too.
At the same time, though, you can't really carry over results either,
no,
because that's how Baylor ends up top 10 last year.
But people do that with everybody else.
Huh?
People do that like Baylor. People do that with everybody else, but did they carry over Tulane? We got to stick them in here somewhere because they were pretty good. If it was carryover with them, they would be like 12 or 15.
Yeah, but it's also school doesn't do that on a regular basis. Alabama does it every single year. Georgia does it every single year. And, USC gets a big, rocket attached to their backs because of things like, the brand and Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams. But, no, I know what you're saying, and, we'll see. Tulane go out there and just do what they did last year and prove a lot of people wrong, but there are definitely negatives to the poll. But for them, they're in it. And so I'd rather dwell on that if I was, the Green Wave than the fact that typically they wouldn't get much love at all to be in the poll to begin with. So, Willie Fritz is an incredible coach, and they probably do deserve a bit more respect. But, there's somebody that's set up really well given the current landscape of realignment to potentially, see their stock rise even farther. I mean, that was one of those teams that I don't know how realistic the Pac-12 realignment talk was. I mean, now it's realistic because they have no choice. But, when they were dragging the whole situation out as long as possible and kicking the can down the road, and, you heard for like the last 2 months of all that of, SMU, and what about Tulane? And, hey, like people are throwing Rice out, which was ridiculous, by the way, but, academics or something. But Tulane does actually check all those boxes, and I think that they, would be a fun ad. It just didn't make sense for the Big 12. Didn't make sense, I guess, for the Pac-12 in their situation, but maybe all that makes sense now because there's a lot of a different, there's a different landscape we're playing on now than what we were playing on just a month ago.
Kim Coulter, my God, Tulane has one great season. The last 50, now they're superpower. Shake my head. I don't think we said that. What we're saying is that they're coming off with a lot of momentum, and yes, they lose people, but everybody else does too, is that just kind of sliding them in at 24 is like, man, I guess we need to rank Tulane. And I think they deserve more respect in that, and they might blow a tire pretty quickly. Also on Mike Oresco, some people don't like him. Bob Bowlesby, remember, did the cease and desist when there was thoughts about ESPN and the American Conference. That ended quickly. Any thoughts that the Big 12 might be even more fragile? But he does have a TV background. Remember now, all the commissioners now seem to be different, at least the incoming with ESPN and elsewhere where he's worked. And so that's why he might be somebody a major conference looks at down the road.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be kind of ironic if he did all of his public, I guess, I don't know if I want to label it as like he was whining or anything, but, he had that long letter that he sent out a few months ago talking about the power conferences. So it would be kind of funny to see it all result in, him technically being in a power conference because the Pac-12 lost over half its membership and created a Frankenstein conference with the American and with the Mountain West potentially. Like, who would be the head of that conference, though? Would it be Mike Oresco? I mean, and that's the thing, too, is like, if you're the Pac, you're not – like, if anything, if you're going to stand strong together as four, you're the one doing the absorbing, not the other way around, right? I mean, you're not getting absorbed into the American Athletic Conference. So, I think Kliavkoff's got to be on his way out regardless, and is probably doing the whole of, like, let's just, leave it better than I found it, which I don't think he's doing that. Although maybe based on how bad it was before, but at least leave it as best as you possibly can. The thing that I don't get about the power conference part of this, though, is so if the whole idea is that there is, what do you call it? Not attrition, but what we were talking about, what's the word that everybody was using? Contraction. then you mean to tell me that we're going to have the Pac remain a power conference? We're going to bring in like 12 teams that never had any business as far as the power people go, being power teams. They're just going to allow that to just, well, you still got those 4. So now I guess Tulane and SMU and any other number of teams, they're all power teams. I don't know that everybody's going to agree to that.
I agree with what you're saying, and that will be scrutinized. The Big 12, starting after next year, half of their conference is going to be from the Pac-12,
Sure.
so that's 4 what are Power 5 autonomous 5 schools. And then on top of that, Cincinnati, Brigham Young really I always thought was as a Division I Power 5, even though they were independent at the time. And then you look at UCF and then Houston. So, yeah, there's if that ends up being like 6 or 8 schools that end up just be kind of just throwing stuff against the wall to see if it works, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I just wonder if and I don't know how all that works, but I just wonder if, those viewing the landscape would go, yeah, that's still the Pac. They're still as power. They still deserve the same spot they used to hold, even though it's only 4 teams and none of them were the flag bearers per se, and now they're accompanied by Tulane and Temple and I guess potentially, out of the Mountain West Boise State. Name any number of teams that are up for grabs right now.
If, in fact, the rumor's true, and John Wilner did not deny it, that if they had to hold their nose to join the Big 12, then will they hold their nose if, in fact, with all due respect to the other conferences that might end up merging, would they have that same type mentality? I don't know.
And I don't hate that for those teams. I'm not against that in any way. It's just hard for me to imagine that there's the door swinging now open and more teams come on into this supposed contraction. Let's bring in 10 Mountain West and AAC schools, and now they're part of the party. It just seems like it's going the opposite direction. So that's what I mean, and that's part of what I'm a little confused on to how that works.
I would love it for those teams, though.
What?
I would love it for those teams, wouldn't you?
I would.
But I get it, what you're saying.
Yeah, but I will see what happens.
D'Angelo askew, the AAC or any of the Mountain West teams will not be going to the Pac-12. It's not worth it. There's absolutely no exposure unless ESPN gives them a $20+ million a year deal.
Yeah, that's the thing. They already have a TV deal. That's another part that's a little confusing on how that would work, because what TV deal are they going to be on? If they're, how would that affect their contract? So, yeah, it's just not as simple as slap the Pac-5 slap the Pac-4 logo, add teams, and then just pretend like nothing ever happened and you didn't lose all the schools that you lost. And I'd be saying the same thing if it was the Big 12. It's just that fortune's reversed for them. But, yeah, there's a lot of those logistical questions that I have about how all of this would work. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how it continues to unfold, even though it seems like, while it's very busy behind the scenes publicly, just a lot of speculation right now, and I don't think anybody quite has a grasp on what Oliver Luck and company might pull off here. But the fact that they brought him in, I think makes a lot of sense with his background. So we'll see what he can pull off.
All right, when we come back, he does. In fact, he's the one that releases the AP Top 25 poll, Ralph Rousseau, and his thoughts about what he saw. There were a lot of people today before the poll came out. By the way, the AP poll, everyone gets to vote 1 through 25. There's a point system, and then Ralph Rousseau looks at everybody's votes and puts them wherever he wants. We'll have fun with that with Ralph. Also, a little bit later on in the 4 o'clock hour, Dave Aranda met with the media following their scrimmage on Saturday. Some injury updates. One not good, but something we've kind of known about, but it's now been confirmed. Another one's pretty good news. The running back room may have gotten a spark over the weekend. And Aranda on the Pac-12, which he grew up watching with his father, his thoughts about that and more. This is 365 Sports. I was on the phone on the way over here with Dr. Rob Maxey at Ideal MRI. They have been phenomenal for me. For everybody that needs an MRI, you should, it'd be worth the drive up from, even if you're in Austin or Dallas, to come here in Waco at the Central Texas Marketplace, because they're going to charge you $497 or less every single time, and the average MRI is $1,100. Their state-of-the-art technology MRI machine, I might be going back in it, because I continue to have kind of this tug in my right hip. I don't know what it is, and I'm not so sure anybody does, but it's just enough of a pain in the butt to where I contacted him over the weekend and said, I think I might need an MRI. I think we all think it's in my lower back. We've done a lot of, I guess you could say, rehab on that tried to do an injection on that, but it doesn't seem to be working. So what else could it be? Ideal MRI will help me find out and can help you find out, too, if you have pain of something that's muscular, ligament, or maybe something else. They'll find it, and it's idealmri.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. And if you can't make it to Riverbend, DoorDash is available to bring it to you. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers, everybody, the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
This 4 o'clock hour begins, and Ralph Rousseau, Associated Press, joins us. He had some pieces up on social media about the poll that was released earlier today, and he joins Paul Catalina. Is out today. He's at possibly jury duty, being selection process. Craig Smoak with me, and I'm David Smoak. Ralph, thank you very much. Was there anything, and man, I saw and heard some of your nuggets, but was there anything in particular when you glanced at it that jumped out at you the most?
Yeah, it's funny. Nothing really tends to surprise me in the polls because, and part of it is because I've been watching it get put together over the last month or so, and I've been staring at it, trying to make sure there are no mistakes and things along those lines. So at a certain point, it becomes, you sort of like lose the surprise factor, and also doing it for 20 years too. I would say, I think Alabama being number 4 is somewhat notable just because it's notable to me because I think it's another way of showing how great Saban has been, right?
this is the lowest preseason ranking for Alabama since 2009, right? They've been at least in the top 3 every year since then. And by the way, that year they were number 5 and won the national championship. So, only in Alabama is number 4, like, a reason for concern, right? So that's maybe one thing. Listen, it's always interesting coming into this season since realignment is on our minds so much. Pac-12's got 5 ranked teams, all in the top, I think 17 or 18. I think 18 is the lowest in Oregon State. And it just sort of makes you go like, wow, like this is going to be a great year for the Pac-12. And it also might be the last year for the Pac-12. Mm-hmm. That's kind of an odd storyline to see that they finally sort of have a lot of their programs clicking, and now the conference is about to fall apart. So, I think those are a couple of things. And listen, you can't help but notice, a team like Florida State's in the top 10 for the first time in about 5 or 6 years. And so welcome back, Knowles, and we'll see how well they hold up to the scrutiny in a year where they're, again, are the Knowles finally back, and do they have a real championship possibility of, a team that has the possibility of winning a championship.
And a nice 5 versus 8 matchup that we'll get right away with LSU and FSU. So that'll be a lot of fun. Hopefully it's as exciting as last year's game was. But, Ralph, in general, you touched on realignment. And, not only do you see, hey, all these schools are leaving from the Pac to the Big Ten, but now it's from the Pac to the Big 12. It's from the Big 12 to the SEC and so on and so forth. And of course, there's all sorts of other things still swirling out there. But just as a longtime college football reporter, what has been kind of your 2 cents take on everything that you've seen unfolding over these last few weeks and months and I guess couple of years now?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's great for the sport as a whole. I think as I wrote a couple of weeks ago, it's not really realignment. It's more like consolidation. And I think that the sport is sort of narrowing a little bit. To focus more and more on the top brands. And, it worked out okay for the Big 12 this time around. But, as I sort of wrote, like, I wouldn't get comfortable because at some point the bell will toll for you. If it keeps along this trajectory, if we just keep adding, if we keep narrowing the focus and saying, no, the big brands, we have to get them all under 1/10. We have to get them all under 1/10. At some point that sounds fatalistic that we're heading towards Super League and there's going to be 35 teams and it's going to look like maybe the NFL. It sounds fatalistic, but it is exactly the trajectory, right? I mean, like we don't have, that doesn't have to continue to be the trajectory, but that is the trajectory. So I don't necessarily love it. I like the idea. But I also concede that, like, I'm 53 years old. I grew up on the East Coast loving all of college football because there was no college football directly near me, right? So I love the width and breadth of college football, right? Because I had no allegiance because it was not a lot in the New York area. So the idea that you had all these like outposts in far off reaches of the country and there was college football everywhere that was kind of meaningful was what drew me into it. I don't have I don't care about the SEC or the Big Ten. I never had an allegiance to a conference. So when you start whittling the things down and consolidating a little bit and all the attention comes on a few conferences, and like, to me, that is losing a little bit of what we like about college football.
Ralph, how often, and I'm not asking you to name names, but how often do you get the top 25 votes as they come in, especially the preseason one, and you're like, was this person paying attention?
No, I tell you, very rarely. And the big reason why, first of all, I think our voters do a really good job. And I think they're very diligent. The other reason why is, like, I look at this very differently than fans. Like, fans have a very low tolerance for anything that doesn't jive with their fandom, right? I was talking to Reese Davis, name drop earlier today for my podcast. And, Reese had the gall to vote Michigan #1 and Georgia #2. And so Georgia fans are just like, my God, like, you might as well have dedicated on my lawn. Like, right? Like, so, like, to me, like, something that's a little out of the box, or a little bit like, oh, that's, yeah, you know, that I don't agree with that, but I could see that. Like, that's where I come from. Like, there's a whole bunch of votes that I don't agree with.
Sure.
And even from week to week, and there will truly be from week to week where I will look at the votes and be like, man, I wish the voters didn't do that. Like, that just doesn't jive to me. But I don't look at that, but very, very, like, I can't think of any, but almost never will I look at it and go, well, that's just ridiculous. You know, because my bar for what ridiculous is, I like to see voters sort of think a little outside the box, and have a very high tolerance for what is considered ridiculous, where fans do not, because fans are kind of set into what they believe, and they're driven by a little more emotional than I am. You know, to me, hey man, as long as you're not voting for as long as you're not like showing some kind of extreme bias or voting for a bunch of losing teams and not paying attention to the scores, I'm usually pretty cool because I don't want to influence votes.
Ralph, Texas is a lightning rod every year, and I definitely feel like there's some years where there's maybe just who do I need at 23, 20? Oh, let's throw Texas in there. You know, I just it's a brand and people know it, but they're all the way up at 11 to start off this year, and we've been talking about them quite a bit, and I think most of us are in agreement on this show and listener-wise that Texas is deserving of being a favorite, but just outside that top 10, I mean, that means that they're really cooking right now. Do you agree with that sentiment about Sarkisian and where this Longhorns program is heading at the moment?
I mean, so this becomes a little bit about emotional, and then look at the data. Like, if you look at what Texas brings back and the returning production and how they played last year, and the fact that they probably played better than an 8-win team last year, right? If you look at the analytics, like you can see this is probably a team that's sort of built to take a big jump forward this year. However, yeah, like as a person who has followed this and the whole Texas is back, narrative over the last 10 years, I find myself, and just to be clear for your listeners, I don't vote. Right? We just count them up. We just count up the ballot here. I don't have a ballot, at least not an official one. So, me personally, I look at Texas at number 11 and find myself going, if I had a ballot, I might make the Longhorns prove it a little more. Like, I see what you see. I see that really good offensive line with some of those young guys from last year. I see all those receivers. I see a 5-star quarterback who could take a big leap forward. Like, I see it, but I might want to be a little more skeptical just because because after 10 years of a time seeing it, I would like to see it before I back it.
Texas Tech, South Carolina, UCLA, and UTSA with Jeff Traylor were the highest, closest to not making the top 25, but they were right on the cusp. Which of those 4 teams surprised you that weren't?
Which of those didn't get in that I thought maybe could? I thought Texas Tech, because there's been a lot of buzz on Texas Tech. Now, I guess, like, I'm not here to validate that or to poo-poo that. Like, I'm just saying that, like, they seem to be the team that people, when you sort of ask around, especially in the Big 12 country, ask around, like, who do you think could be this year's TCU, right? Like, not picked to finish to win the conference, but maybe rises up. There seems to be a fair amount of buzz around Texas Tech. Maybe it would be actually better compared to Kansas State, because I felt like Kansas State, even more so than TCU, Kansas State I felt like was that team last year. I felt like Kansas State was that team that was, outside the top 2 or 3 in terms of preseason polls, within the Big 12. But a lot of people, quite frankly, and I'll pat myself on my back, including myself, said that Kansas State could win that conference last year. And I feel like that's where Texas Tech is. Getting a lot of attention, look like they're ready to take a step forward, have a pretty conducive schedule. I could absolutely have seen them or UTSA moving up to the AAC as the team that could have slipped into the rankings. In fact, I was almost anticipating Texas Tech being ranked, and they just missed.
Yeah, good call on both those teams, Ralph. UTSA, absolutely a bust on their own right, but there is a lot of hype around Texas Tech, that is for sure. We were having a little bit of a conversation earlier about Tulane. They're right there inside at number 24, had a great season last year, the big Cotton Bowl victory. Michael Pratt's back, Willie Fritz, all that good stuff. Is 24 just like, hey, we need to acknowledge them, or do you think that's actually about right?
So, listen, I hate to speak for the voters, but my mind, that is a bit of like, hey, listen, this team was really good last year. We just last seen beating USC, right? So I think that once you get into the 20s, as someone who doesn't have a ballot but talks to a lot of voters, you find yourself going like, man, the difference between this team and that team, where am I going to go here? So I do think there is a little bit of a hat tip to a Tulane team that was really good last year, brings their quarterback and their coach back and a lot of pieces from that team. I would also say this, and this is where, my experience from following this sport, it is really hard to have a magical season 2 years in a row. And for programs like Tulane that are not built to sustain that type of high-level success, I would imagine that there's going to be some fairly significant regression. Now, I will say the other thing on the other hand, for Tulane, most of the best teams in that conference are no longer in that conference. So I think they're probably in good position to follow up, to have a pretty good encore season. Though, I would tend to lean towards, hey, man, we got to acknowledge Tulane. And once you get toward the end of the poll, you're sort of scraping around anyway.
Ralph, I know you've given us a lot of time. One other thing on the Rose Bowl with what's happening with the Pac-12, and now it's 4, and it's falling apart, and maybe they'll survive. Every 3 years, I think they're guaranteed to be a semifinal game, and that was the new deal they finally agreed to because they were pretty stubborn. What happens if the Pac-12 falls apart on the years they don't host a semifinal game in the Rose Bowl?
Okay, so just a couple of things to clarify.
Okay.
Beyond the next 2 years, nothing is set.
Okay.
So we're riding out this contract, right? The contract that's already in place, and this coming season, the Rose Bowl is a semifinal. The next 2 years, it would be part of the quarterfinal mix. The Rose Bowl is going to be part of the quarterfinal mix. That's okay. That's okay with the Rose Bowl. I think the other thing is you have to decouple here, and I understand why people might not realize this. The changes of the playoff have already changed the Rose Bowl, right? The Rose Bowl was already headed for, you're going to be part of the playoff mix. We're not going to do traditional Rose Bowls anymore. The playoff already killed the tradition. The playoff changes, the 12-team format has already sort of signaled the death knell to the traditional Rose Bowl, regardless of what was going to happen to the Pac-12. There may have been a situation where, if we have the ability to get a Pac-12 and a Big Ten team into a quarterfinal, which the Rose Bowl is hosting, that's great. Let's do that. If we can get Pac-12 teams into the Rose Bowl the year that the Rose Bowl is a quarterfinal, they would like to do that. But the Pac-12 status and the traditional Rose Bowl thing, that basically died, or the traditional Rose Bowl thing basically died with the 12-team playoff.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. I was curious because a lot of people with that incredible relationship with the Big Ten and obviously the Pac-12 and how that changes. So it was changing no matter what happened with USC and UCLA. Ralph, appreciate it.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate your knowledge and the insight of combing through all that, and it's really interesting. I love the fact that the polls come out. That means we're really close to maybe games, right? And then we can start talking about that, although the realignment ticker will always be kind of moving throughout the next several months.
Guys, I can't wait to start talking more about football and watching football and getting this realignment stuff in the rearview mirror. And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, when the poll comes out, unofficial starts the season. We're really looking forward to
Absolutely.
Seeing how it plays out.
Thank you, sir, for what you do. Ralph Russo, Associated Press, great at what he does, and we appreciate his time. A lot of you had questions about it and wanted to get clarifications. Before we break, Craig, let's go through some super chats, and we want to thank you for it. Lemansky, best of results on your presentation. Oh, he was talking about what I have to do tomorrow. This Hawkeye fan does my best to catch your podcast all the time. Don't want to miss any of the golden nuggets that occur all the time. Thank you. Lemansky, thank you for the super chat to all of us. Chris, managing donations in this era is critical. If a donor was to give Baylor $20 million, and I think you could insert any program, how much would MAC or the ADs of those schools split the money between NIL and athletic department needs?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it just depends on a case-by-case basis, probably. If you're a program already getting a good haul of NIL donations and maybe you view that as like, hey, now we can gussy up the, indoor or whatever. To your point, though, just in general, that's the battle that everybody's having right now. That's the battle that every athletic director is having of, what do we prioritize and what is the better, investment for us long-term? Is it the 5-star wide receiver from our NIL collective? Or do we really need to fix this up because this team needs their facilities up to par or what have you? And yeah, it'd be nice to just be the Joneses. That's why, everybody's racing to get into the Big Ten or the SEC because money won't be a question, although you're still going to be, fighting fist over hand to, beat out Georgia or whatever if you're in the SEC. So, the money's only going to probably keep increasing as far as what you're paying, but you're also making more. So, yeah, I think it's a case-by-case basis, but your question is the question that I think every school is facing right now is what do we prioritize and what is best for, in particular, our football program. For Baylor right now, they've clearly gone in on facilities, but that was overdue. They needed to do that because it was starting to become a little too antiquated, so they didn't have much of a choice there. But at the same time, I'm sure they would love to have spent some of that money on, a 5-star quarterback. So, just depends on where you're looking at any given time. But it's a battle for, I think, every school, even the ones that have money, is, where does it all go in the end? So, a very fascinating time, and appreciate the question.
Last question, and thank you. Thunder, Heart Lion, Fuller. Will the AAC take the Pac-12 bowl tie-ins? I got to admit, there are so many bowl games that I half the time forget about who's tied into what. But I do know that there were the bowls from attached to the Pac-12 were meeting to try to decide how they will be attached into the future. So that is absolutely, at least those bowls know what's going on, and it is on the table.
Yeah, the Pac bowls have already started looking around. That was out there a few days ago. But, in what direction and what does that mean ultimately? I think it all depends on what happens with the Pac. They're still just in the same spot they were when we left them on Friday of a foursome with what seemed like a couple of options and maybe thought that there were more out there, but, is the ACC door all the way shut? It certainly appears so, based on everything we've, heard and based on what others have reported. So, if that's not an option, then that obviously changes things. But I think that's all up for debate right now because there's got to be no Pac for there to be no more Pac tie-ins. But yeah, if you're somebody with one of those allegiances or one of those tie-ins, you're definitely looking around and going, all right, where are we pivoting right now? Because this is not what we signed up for originally. So, yeah, that's all remains to be seen, but everybody's already kind of working that through in their minds and just need to see what happens ultimately with the Pac.
I miss the Holiday Bowl, and I know that the stadium has been bypassed, but I love not just because Baylor played it, they beat UCLA up pretty good one year, but I love San Diego. It's no longer a part of the Super Bowl rotation. It's a beautiful city, especially at that time of the year. But I do miss that connection. Texas has had a couple of great wins in that bowl game. They've had losses too, but that is one that I wish the Big 12 could get back into their little, I guess, basket of bowl games. When we come back, we're not done. Dave Aranda spoke after a scrimmage on Saturday, a couple of injury updates, and then also his thoughts about Blake Shapen and Blake Shapen's response to what Dave Aranda had to say, along with the college football realignment picture and how someone who lived in California for a long time of his life, how he's looked at this. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. six-bed Zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com. Samantha Duvall joins us. She's the marketing director who knows all of the specials and also the events coming up. And thank you very much, as always, for your time. So all of these holidays are over. We've hit the meat of, literally, of the summer. And your thoughts about as you hit the month of August and into football season, Samantha?
Football season's right around the corner, so that means it's perfect time for tailgating. The best time to grab our hamburger patties is right now through the end of July. We still have our sale going on with our regular patties and our jalapeno and cheese patties. They're $12 a package, so that's 4 patties to a package. It's perfect for the time for football. Gather all your family around. That way you can grill it up.
Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu and how they age it as well. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
Once again, Paul is in a jury duty selection process, and so he's not going to be here as a part of the show today. At least up until now, he has not been told yes or no if he's going to be a part of this trial. Now, so I had a chance after Saturday's scrimmage to go over to hear Dave Aranda. Blake Shapen spoke, and was it Mike Smith who also spoke as well, the linebacker transfer. But so Emery Winter asked Dave Aranda, defensive lineman Jackie Marshall, lost for the year back in the spring. That's something that we kind of had a good idea but couldn't get confirmation. Aranda confirmed he's out for the year with an ACL tear in the spring. He continues to praise linebacker Mike Smith, continuing to just constantly disrupt plays on defense. Freshman, go ahead.
No, I was going to say on the Jackie Marshall thing, the injury there, there was one, and I left it alone because I don't like to I'm not like you. I don't like to fight every single battle out there, every single skirmish. But there was somebody who's like, well, why didn't we hear about this before? And it's like, well, because it was pretty tight-lipped. And look, there's multiple outlets around here. It's not like we're the only one that could find out some information. So, but this guy seemed to have a hard-on for wanting to just criticize Sikkim. And it's like, hey, man, look around the room. There's plenty of other folks who didn't have it either. So it's something they kept pretty close to the vest. And, I don't think it was, nefarious by any means because it's just an injury in the long run, but it's definitely unfortunate news for Jackie Marshall. But, yeah, that took a long time to get out there for whatever reason. And to the point of they had already re-recruited the position with Justin Sambu coming in from Maine. So that was a direct recruitment attached to the loss of Jackie Marshall. So, yeah, that was quiet, but unfortunate is really the big takeaway there.
Here's the deal about injuries. One, there's a HIPAA law, so the university has to be careful. Two, we had an idea that Jackie Marshall was out because of an ACL tear, but if you can't get confirmation from the athletic department or for somebody that's like a family member that tells you that, and that doesn't happen a lot, you have to be careful because, man, if you're wrong, you look like an idiot. But Jackie Marshall's lost for the year. True freshman running back, this is good news. Bryson Washington on a two-time state champion Franklin, the high school team, has missed some practices. Dave Aranda saying that he will return to practice and should be available for their next scrimmage. Jordan Jenkins, running back from Lindale, who's been kind of just sitting there on that depth chart with Quaylon Jones out, an explosive, powerful 19-yard touchdown run in the scrimmage. I spoke with his high school coach over the weekend, Chris Cochran, and Jordan's just being very patient. He wants to be at Baylor. There was probably a time back earlier this year where he wondered about should he look elsewhere. He might, with the Quaylon Jones news and how he looked Saturday, who knows, maybe we'll see more of him, but it all just depends on what they do. With a banger like he is, a big body with pretty good speed, you would want him to be a part of that wide zone offense. And my God, they've been waiting for it, and hopefully that everything has clicked with Jordan. Now, I was also told this, Craig, that Jordan missed some time at the end of last year. He had a concussion last year. But also at some point, his grandmother has raised him, basically. His mother died when he was very young, and that she got sick, and he went back to see her for, I think, maybe 2 or 3 days. There was something out there that perhaps he got in the doghouse because of that. No, he didn't. That's just, again, you're not going to be, kept off the field if you can make an impact on the team. And so Jordan, maybe that run Saturday, that it's time for him to make an impact to that running back position.
Well, they can certainly use him. I mean, they're going to run the ball a lot. And, as we saw last year, it takes 1 or 2 injuries early on, and you're kind of screwed the rest of the way. And, it turned out to be great for Richard Reese. He's a all-American freshman mention, kind of a guy. Got some all-Big 12 type love when all said and done. But, he was also a true freshman that was probably running way too much for his size and for just his age. And now it wasn't like he's like some big body back coming out of high school that was a 5-star. It's like, a smaller, leaner 3-star type of player. And not that those guys can't, go and have terrific careers by any means, but it's just a lot on his plate early on that wasn't expected from anybody. And so the more the merrier, and certainly having a bigger guy like Jordan then that would help matters as well, especially getting down and dirty in between the tackles where, that was a Quaylon Jones kind of a role, or at least part of what, he could do to some extent. So, yeah, it's going to be all hands on deck, and it's not like they lost Adrian Peterson. I mean, this is a blip on the radar. Most people don't even know the name Quaylon Jones anyways, but for them, just knowing how that running back room kind of cratered last year numbers-wise, it is something you go, oh, is that going to be all right? No, Jenkins isn't. Bryson Washington's not practicing. I'm out there the other day. They got 4 guys out there practicing at running back, and you go, oh, gosh, this could get bad, not including a walk-on. So good to hear that a couple of these players are starting to rise to the occasion.
All right, so here's a couple of comments from Dave Aranda. Blake Shapen struggled last year, but so did the entire offense, the receivers, and then sometimes the protection too. So he was asked about Blake Shapen at the practice. He said he looks so much more decisive with his reads and decision-making. So to me, the next question is, What is that? Because things were missing last year for him to have a go-to. Here's Aranda's conversation.
When you're saying he's decisive, was that something that last year was hard because he had to throw the perfect pass alive?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I appreciate the question. I feel like we probably coached him to be perfect, and shame on me with that. And so and then we didn't have the weapons that we have now, and so I just think when it's framed in that way, it was a real high uphill climb, and so. Now, with the people that we got, and then just having gone through it, and the confidence and everything that's with it, way decisive. So there's a few scrambles where he really was able to penetrate, kind of cut the defense, and then was able to, at the top of the drop, get a ball out prior to the break, and the receiver sticks his foot in the ground, and the ball's right there. Hal had one of those, and so it's just really cool to see when it's stuff like that. Everyone kind of notices, and their confidence grows.
And then Blake Shapen came and met for a second. Just a real short comment from him, and I asked him, why? Why is there a difference this year?
Coach Aranda said your decisiveness is better compared to perhaps last year. Why?
I'd say, I took it very serious going in the film room this offseason, being able to watch tape, being able to be on the same page with these other guys, the skill guys. And so I've taken that to another level. So just being able to play more fast, when I get on the field, just letting loose and playing like me, that's the key. So.
All right, there it is. And, more film work, whatever, growing up a little bit, maturing a little bit. That remains to be seen. We'll see what happens with Jackson there from Arkansas. It sure doesn't help because he made some possession, as Aranda said in the postgame, made some contested catches. Now, I didn't think about this when I asked him the question, other than the fact I want to get a coach's perspective on all of this realignment with what's going on with the Pac-12. And my God, that's where he grew up in California. Dave Aranda with a kind of a twist and turns of different opinions and nuggets on the college football realignment landscape.
Have you talked since the teams were added? Because I can't get to the practices.
No.
The new teams, and is that even on your radar as you get ready for the season?
No, I appreciate it. I think it's very exciting, and I think it's exciting and sad. I remember I was a Pac-10 fan growing up, and I remember going to the Rose Bowl. I remember watching USC games with my dad, and I remember when Washington went to the Rose Bowl. I remember when the Badgers beat the Bruins, and it's sad thinking that, or knowing what's happened, and so it's hard. I have to imagine at every level, as a coach, whether it's players are being paid, whether it's players can transfer, whether it's all of which are understandable things. I think if a coach leaves, a player should be able to leave. I think if a coach is getting crazy money, I can understand and totally support the player getting it. But I just think with the focus you have as a coach to be able to treat people right, so that your people stay and your people grow under you, and it's not like a revolving door. I just think that is a positive thing, I feel, and we shouldn't have to be like this to have it, but I think it's a positive thing. And so I think there's always growth that comes in your role, and I can see from an administrator view, just looking for a bright side of it, knowing that, hey, this is kind of a sad day that this league is no more, or this league is such, but we've added people and we're stronger. I think it's kind of a melancholy thing. I can see, you're trying to find the bright side of things all the way across. I think that's the state where college football is. But I would say, knowing some of the coaches that are in, the league just got tougher, and a lot of quality physical teams. And I'm excited for it, and I'm blessed to be a part of it.
The league just got tougher. He was talking about the head coaches, and I didn't think about that. And, of course, his father just recently passed away, so when he brought that up, going to games with him, USC game, Washington, Rose Bowl, whatever, that was probably something that he reflected back on quite a bit in recent days.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is just acknowledging, the point that it's come to where this is all happening, and it's just kind of sad to see. And I think he had some really pointed comments there about, how you talk to players and you talk to your team, and he build a team and do things the way it's kind of supposed to be done. And it's harder to do that now because people can just pick up and leave whenever they want to, himself included. Like he said, he's all for, the players being able to get paid money like the coaches. He's all for players being able to move around like the coaches, but he's also all for learning some lessons along the way and having to fight through things and, make it past adversity. And it's kind of hard to build a team and instill the culture and do all those things you want to do over the long haul if it's shifting every few months or every year. And so I think that's a frustration for coaches who are in it for those reasons and not just to win titles and get rings and make big money. I mean, all that's part of it too, but there is the teaching aspect and the development part and all of that. And a lot of that can, become quite messy when, it's shifting as quickly as it is, whether it be teams or players or conferences or whatever. So, yeah, I thought that was an insightful, answer on his part, and leads you to wondering, is that going to cause it's kind of like athletic directors getting tired of it. Like, are they going to move to other industries? You wonder about coaches. Like, would you rather just go to the NFL? Like, hey, we got a salary cap. Guys are under contract. Everybody's on an equal playing field. We're not going to get booted out of our conference. Like, you know what? I used to say, no, man, I'd much rather be nowadays, I think I would much rather be an NFL head coach than be a college coach. And I don't know if those are his aspirations, but certainly we've seen others dabble with it. And, if he were to go that direction, or any other college coach for that matter, I would not blame them one bit. And if I were them, I'd do the same exact thing.
Well, the NIL in the NFL is a salary cap. Everybody gets paid.
You don't have to go raise it. It's there.
You're drafted a certain amount. You get a certain amount of money. And, there's free agency, but it's there.
Players can't hold you hostage to the extent that they can now. They can get in a bidding war for a free agent, but there's protocols. There's, a structure in place. So, hey, you got this offer, now this team comes and offers. But the way it is now, it's like there's just agents and DMs just, throwing around whatever and however it works. And, yeah, I would much prefer the structure of the NFL and contracts and all that. Now, I know that with the contracts especially opens up the door to full-time employees, and I understand why one's oil and one's water. But if I'm a head coach, just speaking specifically about that, and I know, hey, this receiver's on my team for the next 4 years, and the only way that he's not is if he's, not very good and we have to get rid of him, or even then he'll still, based on his contract, still be paid, wherever he goes or however that works out. So there's at least that fail-safe, or he gets hurt, and that's the only way. Otherwise, he's playing for my football team, and I can plan around this guy for the next 2 to 3 years. And, certainly there's unforeseen things that happen, in the league as well, especially injuries. But at least you know who's on your team, how long they're going to be on your team. You have to worry about your star wide receiver getting poached by the NFC East rival in the middle of the semester. I mean, that's just, when you really think about it, it's ridiculous. Like, it is, and yet there's not an argument really against it because of the way it was all set up to begin with. And that's why we're in the mess that we're in right now, where it is so wild, wild west, as everybody wants to refer to it as, which part of it is the entertainment. But as a head coach, again, I would much rather have the structure. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, more guys go and dabble in the NFL anyways, but especially kind of the way that it is right now. I don't know if Aranda would ever be one of those guys, but it is interesting to hear him kind of speak on just all of the changes and, what it takes away, which is the ability to build teams and individuals over the long haul. Whereas now, as soon as you sign them, you're already re-recruiting them to make sure they're going to be around for the next year. And that's just that's a lot of wasted energy and time that would be better served trying to prop them up as people and better them as individuals.
The only professional athlete who has a consistent transfer portal is James Harden.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he's sort of one of those guys. Yeah.
All right, so here's the list of the top 25 preseason poll. These are the programs who have 5 teams on their schedule in 2023. These programs: South Carolina,
5 ranked teams,
Alabama, Colorado, Baylor, Auburn, and Florida will face, at least off the top, 5 teams currently ranked in the preseason top 25 poll that was released today. Now, that could end up with 8. Some could end up with 2 before it's all said and done, because the poll will fluctuate quite a bit. Here are the list of teams, and there's a bunch of them who play 4 of the ranked teams in the current AP Top 25 poll. There is USC, Texas A&M, Tech, Oregon, they play each other, Missouri, Washington, Arizona, also Arkansas, Ohio State, Indiana. Somebody mentioned that in the chat. I think it was Jim R. and Mississippi State. And again, that could fluctuate. You might play 8, you might play 2 before it's all said and done. But as of now, entering the season, those schools have at least 4, some have 5 ranked teams in the top 25 poll.
Yeah, like you said, it can fluctuate. But on paper, it's a cool deal just to kind of know that and know what's ahead of you and, you know, what the big games are going to be on paper already. I mean, I think we kind of know that. But you see, oh, well, Tennessee suddenly got, you know, this specific number attached to them. And now you kind of ready yourself if you're playing them early on. But, yeah, I mean, the polls are cool. You know, I'm not a giant fan of the preseason poll, but I understand why they are the base level of what everything else is built off of. You got to build off the ground somewhere, and so this is the ground, is this initial top 25 poll. But there will be a lot of tweaks and changes, and I'd be interested to see how that works out in the long run. But I don't know, like in Baylor's case, for example, I feel pretty confident that, yeah, they'll probably play around 5 ranked teams. I mean, Utah will be ranked in week 2 for sure. And then, you know, Texas, TCU, K-State, one of Tech or Oklahoma. They don't play Oklahoma, though, do they? So
well, and Tech is not currently.
Tech could be one. Yep. But, so what would Baylor's 5 be? Be Texas, TCU, Kansas State.
TCU, Kansas State, Utah and
because they don't play Oklahoma.
No. Well, they're not the only ranked team, though, left. Are they in the Big 12?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are. So maybe that was somebody just chalking up Oklahoma because they're in the Big 12.
Yeah,
that's probably what it was.
That, yeah.
But they actually play 4, I think. But still, it could be 5 when all is said and done because who knows? West Virginia shocks the world and they're all of a sudden ranked, you know, when that game rolls around, or any other number of teams. Kansas is in the top 25. That's certainly something that could be possible. So, yeah, that's definitely going to fluctuate. But it's cool to just kind of know where you're starting and what you're dealing with from the outset.
All right, couple of the notes. Let's go to the UCF Bounce House NIL coming soon. A percentage of profits go towards the UCF athletes. This is a seltzer that will be sold at UCF home games inside their stadium, and a percentage of the profits will go towards UCF athletes. The Bounce Berry Blast Seltzer.
Yeah, hard seltzer, so alcohol. And that's fun for UCF fans and all those traveling to that game. I know that, certainly a number of people that I've come across who are going to go check out, the Bears and the Knights when that time rolls around. Paul, for example, going to that game. So, yeah, I mean, if you can have alcohol sales at your stadium, why not get in on something like that promotion-wise? And I think that's really cool, and that'll be a fun little thing for anybody who goes and plays UCF this year and beyond. And I wish the stadium around here would do something similar, but that's never going to happen, unfortunately for them. And that's a lot of money that otherwise everybody else is making. But to see the rise of alcohol sales in stadiums has been, I think, far less of a nightmare than people anticipated, and added a new layer to the game day festivities for sure for a lot of places.
All right, when we come back, Lane Kiffin had a good idea, and what he was saying made sense, but he made a little bit of a mistake or two when it comes to the Big 12. I'll have that and more. This is 365 Sports. Craig Smoak and David Smoak.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people you can count on for the life of your car, whether it's looking to buy a car, whether it's looking to just get your car fixed up. They are the people that you count on, and they're the people that I've counted on multiple occasions over the last couple of years. But right now, if you're looking to buy new, well, they've got you covered, as they've got the 2023 GMC Sierra 1500s discounted by thousands of dollars, and right now qualified buyers can finance for 0.9%, and they've got dozens of those Sierras on the lot. So lots of inventory, the right price, the right financing, all that can be found today over at Richard Carr to get you in a brand new GMC Sierra. They've also got the number one overall brand for new vehicle quality as rated by J.D. Powers in the Buick lineup, which offers luxury SUVs without the luxury price tag. Right now, save $3,250 on a new 2023 Buick Encore GX, plus qualified buyers get 1.9% financing and no payments until 2024. So those are just a couple of the new car offerings. They've also got several pre-owned cars, trucks, and SUVs under $25K on the lot as well. So you can go and talk through those deals with the good fine folks over at the dealership, or you can give them a phone call, or you can visit the website to check out the prices and their offers as well. Their financing philosophy, no matter what you're looking to do at Richard Carr, is 100% credit approval. They say yes when others say no. So check out the new vehicles, the pre-owned vehicles, or check out their award-winning service department, which is standing by to keep you on the road. For 24 years in Central Texas, they built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Richard Carr, run by proud Central Texans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
This This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
So Friday after the show, not every Friday, but I'll drop by H-E-B to get a few things for the weekend. And I was walking through the front door. This is the one on 19th Street, which is on my way home. And Jason Carver stopped me. I didn't know who he was. Stopped me and said, I love the show. I said, you're talking about the one on YouTube? Yes, Jason Carver, who teaches tennis at Baylor. He's not a part of the tennis team, but he does teach tennis at Baylor. So, Jason, thank you very much for stopping me and what we do here and listening and watching us on 365 Sports. So now this, Lane Kiffin over the weekend, very good idea, and a nice thought. He called out the lack of intensity or the lack of minority head coaches. It's really a system that needs to be fixed. He went on to say in his tweet that the SEC and the Big 12 have 0 minority coaches. I got to give Kevin Gall from Baylor Athletics credit. He sent me the tweet. He went, did he not remember Dave Aranda had just beaten him a couple years ago in the Sugar Bowl with his Hispanic background? Kalani Sitake at Brigham Young. Steve Sarkisian's got Armenian heritage. So what he was trying to do is great. And it's not like Lane Kiffin hasn't probably jumped ahead of a lot of minority coaches and getting the several different jobs he's had along the way. I get what he was trying to say, and that doesn't include Dion, who joins the Big 12 next year. So that doesn't mean the numbers are enough, but I thought he just kind of flippantly said something with a good idea, good intentions, but it didn't go very well.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't care about his comments. I mean, I really don't. They don't mean anything to me. So I saw some people are like, well, what about so? And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Point him out. I mean, I think there's certainly a case to be made that he was wrong and that there are some, minority head coaches, in the Big 12. But I think he was more looking at it from, probably a black head coach point of view, just based on the way it kind of came across, or I don't know. He could probably explain it better. Maybe that's what he's referring to, and maybe that's what he meant to say, and instead he just kind of had a wide label. I don't know. I just know that he was trying to get his point across because he had one of his assistants serve as the head coach for the day, and that's where all this was based off of. Was he had one of his coordinators serve as the head coach and run practice, and part of it was because that coach was a minority, and that, like he said, not enough of those, candidates these days or head coaches in these leagues are minorities. And so, that's not, I think, any breaking news to anybody who's followed sports, especially football. That's been long the talk, especially in the NFL, to the point they made a rule around it. College football has no such thing, but I don't think it's any big deal to point out the lack of diversity, especially when you then also point out that 80% of players are African American. And so it's okay, that's weird. 80 out of 100 here, and 5 out of 100 over here, the guy's actually teaching the game and doing, all that stuff. So, yeah, it's something that deserves to be pointed out. But I don't think there was any, intentional malice by not thinking of Dave Aranda or Kalani Sitake either. I don't think that there was, anything other than just he didn't think of it, and maybe that just wasn't where his head was at, but I don't see it as any type of a big deal, really. Well,
his assistant coach, Derek Nix, on staff, the associate head coach of his staff, who's the one who coached practice as a head coach for one day. Now, when we come back, he is out on the West Coast. And Phil Bennett, his thoughts as we get into some of the teams in college football, the Big 12 and more. And this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Ted Teague, the CEO and general manager, sent me this information. 1.9% APR financing, 72 months, plus employee pricing for all 2023 Gladiator Sport, Willys, and Freedom Edition, plus $1,000 rebate and get 90 days, no payments. Also, Alan Samuels, your top dealer when it comes to 25 Dodge Chargers and Challenger Scat Packs. Hellcats in stock, ready for the road right now. 2.9% financing for 72 months in the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited, plus $3,500 in rebates, no payments for 90 days. And then also 90 days, no payments for all of the 2023 Jeep brand vehicles other than the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer. 2.9% financing, 72 months on the 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star, Bighorn, and Laramie trucks, and also 20% off MSRP on the Lone Star and Bighorn crew cabs. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jeweler, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, bar, silver sneakers, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements. New flooring in the weight room floor and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, and many new machines have been added and arriving constantly on the weight room floor. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new ellipticals on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Box, and welcome to Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com or visit us at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
.365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Here we go, this 5 o'clock hour, 365 Sports. Remember, tonight at 10:30 on the CW, the 365 Sports Tonight with Emery Winter will pull all of what we have today, including this segment we're about to have with former college football coach Phil Bennett, David Smoak. Paul Catalina is out today. Craig Smoak here with me as always. And here we go. Where are you and what are you doing, you said to me in a text message?
I'm at the Beverly Hilton in Beverly Hills at the pool, enjoying sangria with my wife. So not missing it at all.
I'm very jealous. That is a gorgeous hotel. When the Cowboys were there for a Super Bowl in Century, Century Plaza Hotel.
Century, yeah, right there.
Right there. My goodness, good for you and what you're doing. All right, so the top 25 poll came out. I know it means just basically votes, but Georgia trying to become the first team to get to 3 consecutive national titles since, the mid-30s. Minnesota did it. Why is that? Well, one, it's hard to win one, but there have been dynasties, Phil, in the past that had a chance to win 3 in a row and haven't been able to do it.
Well, I think we're going to see this year, Smoak. You've got that quarterback was a much better player. People said, hey, he was a game manager. He's not. This guy's a winner. They don't have that right now. Now, they'll still be good on defense. It's just whether they can bring that same offensive structure. They lost their offensive coordinator. If they win it, then Kirby will go down, in that Saban, Bear Bryant name. But I'm a little bit skeptical of them being able to go through the way they have the last couple of years, just because of the turnover.
Coach, how much do you or does the program in general pay attention to that? I mean, I know there's the graphics team that's like, hey, we're number 16 and you want to promote that. But like as a coach, as a team, when you see that, do you use it as a disrespect thing if you're not ranked or you're low, or does it even register at all, really?
Well, I think coaches really stay away from it. I really do. I saw something that Sonny Dykes said, and I thought it was very well put. He said, it's nice to be recognized. He said, but at the same time, this is a can-do business. Art used to say that. You've got to prove yourself week in and week out. And, I look at schools, unfortunately, that we play, Texas, A&M. I mean, A&M started last year, Craig, at I think number 6. Isn't that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And ended up, 5-7. So, I think it's almost like recruiting. As much as I like some of the guys that evaluate recruits, I really didn't care about what they thought about recruits. I mean, nobody had ever heard of Eddie Lackey or Grant Campbell. It's just what you do with it. Now, I tell you, a couple of teams that I looked at that's interesting. I don't know how USC can be number 6. I just don't. After the way they played, until they prove they can play defense, they can't outscore enough people. And I look at that, and I know there's a lot of potential, a great quarterback, but, Tulane crashed them on their defense. I look at Penn State. They've never been – James has never got it at that level. And one of the things that I'm really looking forward to watching is seeing with 2 new coordinators is what Alabama does. This is going to be – Alabama has had quarterbacks. Right now, from what I'm hearing from people around, they're not sure who their quarterback is. So it's going to open some doors for maybe some newbies.
Phil, there was a stat that Alabama being ranked 4th, with most programs would love that. This is the lowest they have been ranked in a preseason poll 4 since the year they won the national title back in 2009.
Well, I can see that. I really can. There's a lot of unknowns in this team. Now we all know that Nick will coach the dickens out of him. I think having Kevin Steele back with him will be an easy transition. The young coach Reese from Notre Dame, that's going to be interesting. He's 30. What is he? 31, 32. How's he going to respond in the game when Nick's tearing his ass up? And wanting to do this, wanting to do that. Nick's pretty much had guys there that with Sarkisian and with O'Brien and Dayball that pretty much knew what they were doing. This is going to be a new adventure for Tommy, and it's going to be interesting.
Coach, what are your thoughts on, Michigan and Jim Harbaugh and how they've now positioned themselves the last couple of years after – the long, hard trials of trying to finally overcome Ohio State? They've been able to do that, but they're at 2. Ohio State's at 3. Sets up, obviously for a lot of fun talking. But just what do you think of Harbaugh in general and the way he's run that program and where he has them?
Well, I first of all, I think you're so right, Craig. He has stayed the course. He was getting just beat to death about not being able to beat, Ohio State. He beat him at home. Then this year they go and really, that was a huge game. I don't think people realize after watching the way, Georgia was so lucky to beat Ohio State and to see Michigan dismantle them at, the Horseshoe the way they did said a lot about what he's building there. Now, what I'm not a fan of is this deal with the NCAA. He's being hard-headed, and I think it's going to affect his team if he doesn't get some resolution fast. He's got 4 games. He was supposed to be suspended. Now the NCAA committee said, no, we're not doing that. He wouldn't admit to anything. And in this business, it's pretty obvious that they have the goods on him. And he better make a decision what's best for this team and get it over with and get going, or it could be a long year.
Is this one of the few times right now that the NCAA has the bat and they can swing it? Because it doesn't seem like they have much clout anymore.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. With this reorganization, with the conferences, they feel like they have to step up. I know that. They really do. And if you look across, Smoak, Florida State was denied an appeal on a somewhat, transfer from Miami. North Carolina was denied an appeal, but that were usually just, done. And yes, and answer your question, I think they had said, you know what, enough's enough. We're still the NCAA. You have taken an oath to abide by our rules under our guidelines, or you won't coach or you won't play. And I think, Jim is a different guy. I've known him since he was a player with the Bears, but at the same time, great leaders do what's best for the whole and not the few. And he's got to really make a decision. Ward Manuel has got to get involved and says, hey, this is bigger than you. We've got to get this. And they do. They have a chance to have one of those years where this might be their year. And you sure don't want your ego and your bravado to affect, what it could do for your school.
Coach, how similar is what Josh Heupel does offensively to what you saw for so many years under Art Briles and what, obviously was very successful here in Waco for a long time?
Well, Craig, it's the same offense. Jeff Levy put it in. Jeff put it in at Central Florida, and he's done a good job with it. And but it's Art's offense, and and if you watch it, tempo. I watch them play. I can almost call their plays, so he's done a good job with it. The thing that he's done that I don't think a lot of people recognize, he didn't go part way with it. When Jeff put it in there, he'd been at Missouri. If you remember, he was there as a coordinator, gets the UCF job, hires Jeff, and he tells him, he goes, I want to run with, we ended up getting him fired at Oklahoma, if y'all remember that. He was trying to do what they did, and they ended up, hiring Lincoln after him, and he ends up going to Missouri. And when he hired Jeff, he went, which I applaud him, he went all the way in, and he's done a good job with it. And you know what? He knows it's quarterback driven. It's good. The offensive line, everything is, it's offensive line friendly because you get a lot of throws quick. And now it does stress your defense a little bit. And I thought last year that their defense probably didn't get the credit they deserve, because I watched them at the end of the year against Clemson, and they really played well on defense.
Phil, what is the difference between what Art kind of became like the master scientist with what he did with that offense and the air raid?
Well, the air raid is a sideline to sideline, crossers, everything's tied into a different, if you do this, we do this. Art's big deal. Art was a vertical passing game. And the air raid does throw the ball vertically. But the thing that people fail to realize about us and Art Briles at Baylor, I think I'm right on this. One year, I think we had 3,000 yard rushing.
Mm-hmm.
We were a physical football team, and I'm talking about we would get, our H-backs / fullbacks. I mean, we played a lot of 12 personnel. If you remember, one of the highlights of my career is when we came back against TCU in 2014, and Gary hadn't been able to stop us. So, Gary always says, well, there wasn't a lot of good defense played that game. Well, listen, we gave up 440 yards. They gave up almost 800. So that we were better than they were without question. But at the end of the game, we got in too tight. We had to kick a field goal or score, and we ran the same play like 9 times in a row, and they could not stop us. And they were really a good defense.
Yeah, because you got 10, 12 yards at a time, so the clock would stop.
Yeah. Our offensive line, I don't know if you remember this, but one time they took Shock and they rode him 10 yards. I mean, we drove them back 10 yards. And to see the frustration on them and watch it, that's what the difference was with our ability to run the ball and the physicality of how we did it. And of course, Randy Clements is the best there is, and we didn't run a ton of gap schemes. We were a zone and a insert team, and it was very physical. I mean, our H-back guys had to be physical, and we were able to play and really cause people. And then you throw in the vertical game and the quick game, the nows, the bubbles, to Corey Coleman, to all the different people, and it was hard to defend.
I know it's just a preseason poll in the long run, Coach, but, TCU to be at 17, given all that they lost, was kind of surprising to me. I think it's right. I think they're going to be really good again. But, it just seems like, I don't know, it seems like everything's kind of clicking for them at the moment. Do you get that sense as well, that this is kind of the way that it's set up with Sonny now is they can lose a lot of talented players, but especially in this portal era, their location, all the bells and whistles, that they're a team that can just reload rather than rebuild?
Well, I think it's, my thought, Craig, it's going to be determined. It's yet to be determined.
Gotcha.
I thought last year, let's be honest, the majority of those kids were Gary Patterson kids.
Oh, yeah.
And that staff previous. People, let's give credit where credit's due. And with that said, I thought Sonny and his staff came in, did a great job of managing them, doing it. I think it's really going to be interesting. You go back and there were some close games. The Baylor game. I mean, they very easily could have lost that game to Baylor. They could have lost to Oklahoma State. I mean, there were some close games, and their quarterback was the difference maker. We're going to see if Morris, he's always been touted as a potential guy. Can he be that guy? And I think that becomes crucial. Same thing with Baylor. You look at Baylor last year, close games. Is he going to be a guy? And are they going to be good enough on defense with a new coordinator that's never called defense? I think Aranda, without question, has to be involved more on their defense than they ever have. So, but I think they're all talented, and it's going to be exciting to watch them, and see how it evolves.
Make a couple of calls during your spare time drinking another sangria. Mike Smith, who's a transfer linebacker from Liberty, is apparently having a hellacious camp, and he had a pretty good spring. He's a linebacker for them, but he seems to be very disruptive, and I know you could probably do some due diligence on finding out. He came from Liberty, so that's something they obviously needed somebody there. So last thing, you mentioned Art. He's going to be coaching in a new league. He's been a part of that team in Italy. He's been coaching that team, but he's going to have an opportunity with this international league. Your thoughts? Have you talked to him about it?
We've missed each other. I've been gone. He's called me, and I called him back and missed him, but I'm excited for him. He's still got a lot to offer. I have not given up hope on his situation. He just, I told somebody that. I said, hell, he goes to Italy and wins the championship. He has the it factor, and I don't know anything about this league, but I know they got a hell of a coach, and I hope it's fun for him. And of course, being in Dallas, is probably great. And I see that they got some other old guys. I'd say old guys. Hell, I'm old too, but Mummy and different guys like that. I think Rolovich, the coach at Washington State, is involved in it. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Nick Rolovich, yep.
You know, I'm always open for guys like that enjoy football. It's the best game going, and I hope it's a good deal for him, and I hope him and Jan have a blast doing it.
What about if he needs a defensive coordinator?
You know what? He might have to come to Beverly Hills and talk to me.
Hey, enjoy what you're doing, man. Congratulations on getting away. Thank you, Coach. Thank
All right,
you.
guys. Thank you.
Phil Bennett, former longtime college football coach, his thoughts about many things, even trying to explain the difference between the air raid and also what was just a pure electric, what Art Briles and company have run, and now what Tennessee's running, what Oklahoma hopes they can run with Jeff Lebby, although it hasn't quite worked out that way. This is 365 Sports.
Come shop the greatest selection in Central Texas and save big on Ram trucks during the Make This the Summer event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, 20% off MSRP or 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Plus, if you're a first responder, you get an extra $500 bonus cash. We've got the inventory and we're making big deals. Hurry in today. They won't last long. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop Ram trucks.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
All right, earlier today, the Associated Press college football poll was released. We went over that quite a bit earlier to start the show and even had Ralph Rousseau of the AP. There's the top 25 poll with Georgia trying to become a 3-time champion. Michigan, you wonder if whatever's going to go on with Jim Harbaugh, how that affects them. Ohio State, their arch rival, then Alabama. And as we mentioned, the lowest they have been ranked since 2009. I've been covering this sport, watching it, loving it for years. I can't imagine, no matter who it was, the USCs or the Ohio States or whoever, the Florida States, Nebraska in the 90s, ever having that kind of a stretch of being ranked third or better from 2009 to last year and number 4 this year. LSU at 5.
Well, I think it's interesting that that's what everybody noticed when the poll first came out. I think everybody, that's the first thing you notice because, I mean, just looking at the graphic right now, seeing Alabama all the way to the right like that just doesn't look right. So that's, a testament to what Saban built and just their ability every year to be not only in the conversation, but one of the main couple of people at the dinner table. And, it's crazy to think that 4 is some, sign of slowing down or disrespect or however you want to frame it if you're on the Alabama side of things. But it's also just a testament to Georgia and how much of a freaking juggernaut that they've become. But, yeah, it's fair to wonder. I wasn't even thinking when I was asking him about Harbaugh about all the stuff off the field that's clearly like now the main headline surrounding that program. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. I also thought that Bennett was more than fair in pointing out USC. Like, I see them there, and I don't blink twice because I totally understand it. But he's absolutely right on, the fact that they don't necessarily deserve to be there based on what we've seen so far. But they do have Caleb Williams, and they do have a head coach, and they've got, that logo.
A defense that has to be somewhat better, right?
Huh?
A defense that has to be better.
Well, that's what Oklahoma fans said for going on 3-4 years, and it never changed, really. So you say that, and no, to answer your question, not necessarily.
You're right. Yep. All right, I asked this question, and then you have there's 4 teams from the Big 12, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas State, TCU. I asked this question in the chat room. Let's read some of the answers. Which team in today's top 25 poll, who was ranked too high and who, in your opinion, was ranked too low? Alan said high was Tennessee. Low was Tulane. Scotty B, Texas too high, and I would say Iowa is low. Somebody else mentioned that Iowa, with that disastrous offense they've had, would not even have gotten any votes. They are sliding. They slid right in at number 25. I didn't even realize that logo when I saw it the first time. Sir blah, blah, blah. FSU too high. Cheeto Miko, Miami's overrated. Canelio, Oklahoma is too high. Penn State from Paxton, A&M.
Oklahoma's got a lot of people split, I feel like. Yeah. I don't think anybody really knows what the heck to make of the Sooners this year, and I'm a fan, and I don't really know what to expect. I mean, on the one hand, I could see the argument for why they'll be much better than 20. I could see why they could, potentially, appear in the Big 12 title game on their way out, if not win it. I'm sure somebody out there thinks that that's possible. But at the same time, just simply being at 20 versus where they usually are, I mean, that's kind of a sign of like, you better be careful here because starting off at 20 is not really where you're expecting to be if you're an Oklahoma fan. So big season for Brent Venables, and then knowing what's right around the corner. It's not like you just, go to the offseason. Now you get ready for SEC ball. So better hope you finish higher than a lot 20 to give a lot of momentum and confidence into the move that follows.
They need a heartbeat.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I see the case both ways for them. I see the case for, not even having them ranked, but just outside the top 25. But 20, that's a nice middle spot to meet, and I'm fascinated to see, what actually ends up happening there.
Jim R., a question about the part we had earlier this year, week, or today, about top 25 teams on the schedule early. How many preseason top 25 end up in the final poll on average? I would say, what do you guys think, 15, 17?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Well, last year there were 5 teams that were unranked that made it in the top 10.
Do what?
5 teams that were unranked last year made it inside like the top 15 or 10. So,
yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably around 50%, maybe hovers a little above that because it feels like just simply having half the teams should be doable for voters out there from start to finish because – mean, that's really not asking a lot, especially in a sport where so many teams only lose like 1 to 2 to maybe even 3 games. But, that just goes to show you the wildness of the sport and trying to predict it before seeing anything is that 50% or maybe hovering above that is the average, and it's not like 75%.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know for sure, but I'd imagine it's probably slightly over 50%, something around there.
Jim, I didn't give you an answer, neither did Craig, but we gave you kind of an idea of what it might be.
Don't have the answer. Otherwise, I'd give it to you.
From Alan, LSU will win the SEC West. Scotty B, I think TCU's a little too high. Cheeto Miko, especially Florida State, overrated. Let's see here. From that's not about that topic. Utah is debatable because of the quarterback situation. From Scotty B, that's a good point with Cam Rising, but they're a ball of razor blades. Alabama going to lose 4 times, according to Tim Salinas. I think Tim's a UT fan, not including the bowl game. Wow.
Who's this?
Tim Salinas.
No, who's he talking about?
Alabama.
Yeah, I don't know about all that. I tend to lean the other direction with them. 4 is a lot of losses, even if you're including the bowl game. So hard to see that. But you know what? Everybody's been anticipating Nick Saban's downfall for going on well over a decade now at this point. So maybe actually 2 decades. But, man, that would be something. If you're right, then hopefully you follow back around and we talk about that at some point, because that's a heck of a prediction that would certainly have a lot of people talking if that was the case.
I think a lot of people hope that Nick Saban's lost his touch. I don't think he has. I think he's more determined and coaching harder than ever before. Not that he wasn't before.
Yeah, it's concerning, though, when you don't have the guy like you've seemingly had now for the last few years at quarterback, and there is a bit of a question, and we're only 2 weeks away. Now, if you trust anybody to solve it, you'd probably go to him first. But there's cracks in the armor potentially, and I think that's what people are holding on to. And, especially I think we're going to hear a lot about it because Texas plays them early. So I'm seeing way more Alabama quarterback talk than I normally would see on my timeline. Just like I'm seeing way more Cam Rising talk because they play Baylor in week 2. So all of a sudden I'm seeing Rising stuff everywhere. So, yeah, we'll see. But that quarterback situation is a little bit of a question mark at the moment.
Barry Crawford, he talked about Grinch couldn't organize a defense if he was in Kiev. Also, Conan, North Carolina will drop out after the first week as always.
Yeah, probably.
Let me see here. A couple other ones.
Be awfully disappointing with Drake May, though.
JG, look at Tulane. A shame Dana stole their offensive line after only 1 season in NOLA. It was amazing seeing that third-string quarterback shock everyone last year. Also, Katie Rader, anyone think Oklahoma, A&M, and Tech would not whip anyone around them? I think you're talking about maybe in the poll.
In the poll, and I'm sure, let's see Iowa.
Okay.
Ole Miss, North Carolina. I mean, I'd probably take them in most games over those teams, Tulane. But, at the same time, I just as much as there might be some of those teams overhyped or other teams you want to point to that are overhyped, I mean, there's been an awful lot of hype surrounding Texas Tech that they need to follow through on, and actually show. And they had a great year and showed a lot of it last year. There's an awful lot of hype for Oklahoma just based off of, it's Oklahoma. They've got to be better than they were. And who was the other team that she mentioned? Or was it only Oklahoma, Texas Tech?
Texas Tech, A&M, and Oklahoma.
In A&M, I mean, I think they're actually – is it possible they're flying under the radar a little bit? That they're going to be – I mean, I say flying under the radars, and everybody expects them to fire Jimbo soon. And I think that they could actually be better than expected. I think
last year it was just a –
I don't expect them to repeat last year is all I'm getting at. I think they'll be much better than that. And I'm not by any means thinking they go and win the SEC or anything, but that division is just a murderer's row where they've got LSU and Alabama sitting right there in front of them, not to mention Auburn and Hugh Freeze, and they're already getting a ton of, preseason hype, even though we haven't seen them out there just yet. But, A&M's going to be very curious, and I could see them being better than bargained for.
All right, a couple of more, then we break, come back with David Hellman on the Cowboys in the NFL. Wet blanket, Oklahoma was 6-7. Make them earn something. I agree. I like that comment. I don't know where they're going to be.
That's fair.
Yeah, I do like that. Most people don't think offensive line coaches are important. Alan Tran, no, yes, I think they're huge when it comes to the mentality and personality of the team. Conundrum, Wisconsin too high, Penn State too low. I think Penn State was, 7 in that poll?
Yeah, Penn State was pretty high.
Someone else then disagreed. Alan did. Let me go through one more.
disagreed that Penn State was too low. Or was too low, yeah.
And I wonder if Katie, going back to her, talking about the fact that Texas is not in the top 25, they're right there. So could they beat Tulane? Could they beat Ole Miss? Could they beat North Carolina, Wisconsin, some of those teams that are in the back half of or in that lower part of the 25 and that's edged out Texas Tech? I could see that theory of like they should maybe be in the top 25 because you expect them to be better than some of those teams. So I could see that. And yeah, I can't wait, man. I really can't, because we've been talking about this for so dadgum long now, and realignment was thankfully something that, helped time pass by, but there's just so many fascinating stories and players and unknowns, and I am just so ready for it all.
I think week 2 of the season is going to be incredible with all the matchups, even in one here in Waco with Utah, Alabama, and Texas. All right, here's from Big 12 Fanatic. Ole Miss is in the top 25, and Texas Tech is a head-scratcher. At no point during the bowl game, remember they did play, was I worried that Ole Miss was going to beat Texas Tech.
That's fair, yeah. The Ole Miss one, I mean, you point that out, and a couple of others have now as well. If they were in the Big 12, would they be ranked? Probably not. If they were in any conference not named the Southeastern Conference, would they be ranked? Maybe if they were in the Big 10. So, yeah, I agree there. I do think they've obviously got some talented guys with Judkins leading the way there. But, yeah, I think that's a little bit of the label, the conference label, because I do think you can make the case for Tech having a spot as opposed to them, and not even considering the bowl game. But you throw that into the mix, and I know teams change, but Tech's only expecting to be better. And I guess Ole Miss expects to be better, but I certainly haven't got the vibes from them that they're on the same sort of trajectory as Texas Tech is, for example. So, yeah, I think that's a fair argument.
Emiliano, last one. Fellas, why not 2 or 4 of the Pac-12 to the Big 12? Stanford and Cal aren't coming. They don't want to be a part of it.
Stanford and Cal just don't want to be, and I don't think the Big 12 wants them to be outside of Stanford. I think that they would love that, but it's just not realistic, mostly because Stanford doesn't want that. And then, so that kind of just opens and closes that door right there.
All right, Paxton, last thing. North Carolina too low when they have the quarterback in Drake May. We got a break. When we come back, we'll have David Hellman. Cowboys had their first game against Jacksonville. A lot of players didn't play, but, I don't know. I heard a note about the Ravens have won like 30-something or 20-something consecutive preseason games. I don't even know that. David Hellman, Fox Sports, is next.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs. Knowing you, that's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of FoxSports.com.
Always have to be careful when it comes to preseason, but it's interesting and it's kind of neat to see Deuce Vaughn doing his thing like he did it in college. David Hellman, Fox Sports, joins us today. Craig Smoak and David Smoak on 365 Sports. Man, he's just fun to watch. I know some people seem like, wow, he's pretty good. Well, he's been good. And he's probably a fan favorite. Just, David, from your thoughts about seeing Deuce Vaughn do what we know he can do.
Yeah, I think I like the way you phrase that because we know. And I think that's a fun thing about the preseason if you're a college football fan is, it shouldn't surprise you. If you follow college football, you know all about Deuce Vaughn. And I don't think that anybody who followed his college career is really overly surprised that he was able to put that together. He's incredibly fun. Even as a 6th round pick, there was no doubt in my mind whatsoever that he was going to make this team. And now we just go about figuring out a role. I think it's a little early to just hand him the backup job behind Tony Pollard. I think the guy, Dowdle or Malik Davis. But I think it was just confirmation that, why wouldn't he be able to do this at the NFL level? If he could do it so well in college.
So, David, Deuce was obviously a storyline. How else do you go about unpacking preseason games and, particularly these first ones? I know that this is, early is when you'll probably see most of the guys you'd want to see as opposed to like the 4th one. But, how do you go about kind of viewing these things and separating overhyping versus actual substance?
Well, I think if you just look at it player by player and position by position instead of as a football game, it makes it a hell of a lot easier. Like, obviously we don't care about the score. Some of the situational stuff can be interesting. But for me, you break it down into early and late. In the first half, you're like, okay, Damone Clark is probably your number 2 starting linebacker, and DeMarvion Overstone is fighting for time. So what are those guys doing against Jacksonville starters? Because that's the other fun thing is you get to see those guys. Jacksonville played their first string for 2 series, so you get to see those guys go against real deal NFL competition. You get to see Mozzie Smith play 2 or 3 quarters and say, okay, if this guy looks like this, what do I think his role is going to be if he is a starter or a major piece of the defensive line rotation? Same thing goes for offensive linemen. Matt Waletzko is a guy that I thought was interesting just because he might be called upon to be your swing tackle this year. And then as you go, again, you just sort of change your expectations. You get into the 3rd quarter, the 4th quarter, you say, okay, these are guys fighting for roster spots. But for instance, Devin Harper, the linebacker out of Oklahoma State, you say, this guy's probably not going to play a ton of snaps on defense this year, but he looks good. And if he can find a role on special teams, he's definitely going to make this team. And so it's just kind of like a puzzle. I don't think you can evaluate everybody equally, but depending on what stage of the game you're in, you kind of change your expectations for who you're watching.
Overshown was very much active. And, I mean, saw him at Texas, and at times he made explosive plays, disruptive plays, and there are times he's going to get lost. But he does seem to be I would think Dan Quinn is salivating to see what he could do with him.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think Overshown is a Dan Quinn dream piece. And I mean, we don't know how good he's going to be. That's not what I mean. But if you just look at the defense Dan Quinn is building, and I think the way defense is really trending in the NFL right now, you just want athletes that can do a whole bunch of different stuff. You know, we talk a lot about the safeties on this team, how Jaron Kearse and Donovan Wilson can play safety, but they kind of function as linebackers as well. Micah Parsons is an edge rusher who can drop in coverage. And I think Overshown fits that perfectly. He's a former safety, but he's bulked up to play linebacker. He's like 6'2", 220, so maybe 225. So he's undersized for a linebacker, but oversized for a safety. And he moves really well. And so I'm sure Dan Quinn looks at that guy and says, if this guy's not a liability in coverage, think of the fun that I can have with him, whether it's, you know, blitzing, whether it's dropping in coverage, whether it's chasing down guys on the backside of the play. I just think he has the potential to be a player who can wear about 4 different hats in your defense. And if we've learned anything from Dan Quinn, that's exactly the type of guy he tries to identify.
What did you think of the Nathan Rourke play there at the end of the game that went, mega viral just because of his persistence, and he wasn't going to be brought down no matter what the situation?
You know, it's like full transparency. That's the fun thing about the preseason. I think like there's less than 5 minutes left in the game. Yeah. At that point, you're starting to get your notes ready for what you're going to write about. You're kind of talking to the other writers about what they think and what they saw. I think I was joking around with a couple other Cowboy writers that I only had one eye on the game. And then I heard the crowd sort of start to get riled up, and I looked, I was like, holy crap, this play's not dead yet. And then obviously he threw the touchdown. I was like, holy crap. I don't think I've seen, I don't know if I've seen a more impressive play live. Maybe the Odell Beckham one-handed catch way back when, but I haven't seen very many more impressive plays happen in front of me than that. Definitely not in a preseason game.
David, what do you think about Ezekiel Elliott heading to the New England Patriots after a long wait to try and find out where he was going to play again?
I'm happy for him. You know, it sounds like a good opportunity. New England needs another back besides Ramondre Stevenson. I think it's good for the Cowboys for 2 reasons. Now we can kind of close this book, and we don't have to listen to Jerry Jones when he tries to pretend like Zeke is going to come back. And plus, you know, he's not going to a division rival. He's not even in the NFC. So, there's no reason why you have to wish ill for him. So, hey, I hope, the biggest problem with Zeke is just that he was making way too much money for what he was producing. But on a $3 million contract as part of a rotation, I still think he can be a very effective player. So wishing the best for him.
Based on glancing at your timeline, though, you do have some fantasy advice for Patriots running back owners, right? If they're a Ramondre Stevenson, what's that advice?
I mean, people, and Ramondre Stevenson's a great player. Again, a guy that, if you're a Big 12 fan, you know all about him. And he was, he's an ascending young running back. And I feel kind of bad for him because I'm like, guess what, buddy? Zeke Elliott's taken all your goal line touches. I hate to break it to you. If I had to guess, Zeke Elliott might finish 3rd on that team in rushing yards, but he's going to finish 1st in touchdowns if I had to guess, because every time they get down there near the 3, 2, 1 yard line, I have a feeling number 15's coming in the game.
David, final thing, I guess Cowboys related, the big news that Zach Martin ending his holdout, agreeing to a reworked deal. Your thoughts on getting that done and, one less thing to worry about for Cowboys fans?
It's only a matter of time. When the Hall of Famer wants to adjust his contract and do it. And, I'm glad they got it out of the way with plenty of time so that, it would have been messy if Zach was holding out until the regular season started and you got to worry about whether or not he's vaccinated. So he'll have 2-3 weeks to get himself ready. Not that he's going to need that long. But yeah, when one of your franchise great players has a complaint like this, you work it out. I never really had a doubt about that. And I'm glad they got it taken care of with plenty of time before the season.
David, thank you very much. David Hellman, Fox Sports, with us on Mondays in the 5 o'clock hour. We appreciate his time.
Yeah, I mean, just some good tidbits. Deuce Vaughn, I mean, it's crazy to see him out there because, he looked tiny in college, and it's only worse in the NFL because everybody's like your prototypical size or above, weight or height-wise. So fun to see him out there running around and doing his thing and scoring and, I was just flashing back. I was like, it's like the Big 12 championship game. All of a sudden, there he is in Dallas with a star on his helmet, and he's doing the same thing in the preseason at the same place. So pretty cool. And, I mean, I think it's like college football. Of the season's almost here. Now you got these preseason games going on. And it's amazing just to see how many NFL fans love the preseason and, like, what a thing that's become of just to have any taste of football whatsoever. I'm convinced that if colleges did, like your suggestion of many years ago of, like, crossover spring games or something, I would imagine there'd be a huge audience for that. And I think that's evident by just the football-hungry nature of, like, the preseason's here, it's football, let's go. And saw a lot of that throughout the weekend. So fun to just have it on in the background, even if it's not great football, just to have like the logos and that stuff, kind of the voices of the announcers while you're, doing laundry or whatever. It just feels good. It almost feels like a crisp breeze is going to be rolling in here, although that's probably still 3 months away as we are in our 20-whatever day straight of 100-plus degree temperatures in Texas.
It is. I walked into HEB on Sunday afternoon about 1 o'clock. And I promise you, I don't know what it feels like in hell. I might spend time there one day, or what it's like to walk on the sun. But honestly, and I mean, I've lived in Texas every year now since 1976, and even a lot of years before that. It's hot. Okay, hot is hot, but it is like a different animal right now.
Yeah, Utah fans, start hydrating. I'm telling you right now. I'm sure you've been to a lot of hot places, but even if some of you have been to Texas during this time of year, I think the majority probably haven't. And so just telling you right now, based on what we've seen, McLean Stadium is going to be a toaster. And not just like hot, but we're under a heat dome. That's why it's so hot. That's why it's different, is we've got a dome above us basically keeping out any rain, keeping out any cool temperatures. And it's just like we're in an oven is basically what we're in. We're in a constant oven where it's been 20-plus days of 100-plus degrees. More often than not, 106, 107. And I think tomorrow's actually supposed to be the break. I think it's supposed to be like 98 tomorrow. Yeah. So it'll probably feel like fall.
Of course, there's no...
But then after that...
If it rained right now, it would dissolve before it hit the ground.
Yeah, but then I think tomorrow's supposed to be our potential break from 100 degrees for the first time in forever. And then after that, another like week of 100-plus degree temperatures. And then maybe by the end of this month, we're finally done with it. But...
Yeah. Man,
it's been brutal.
One question to close out the show from SC Scout Guy. Looking way back to South Carolina and Arkansas joining the SEC in 1992 was the single best decision both programs have ever made. Oof. Where would they be now if they had not joined them? Arkansas would probably still have been a part of the Big 12, or they never were a part of it. They would have ended up probably a part of the Big 12. And South Carolina would, I don't know. I mean, ACC? Would be a part of the ACC, or maybe even who knows if they would have at any point been independent. But that's a great question, and both made the right decision.
Well, and kudos to them for making a decision that, I don't know, I don't really remember all the circumstances, a little bit too early for me, but that's a layup now, right? And it's not so much of a layup back then as it would be a total no-brainer now. But, yeah, I mean, there was some level of foresight there, and just be thankful for sure, because it could very well have been one of those situations where, you could have been on a lifeboat like so many programs are right now, and fan bases are trying to figure out what's going to happen next. I mean, not that those programs are like, in danger. They were in danger of being extinct or anything, or any of that kind of comparison. But I mean, shoot, you never know. If you didn't have the last 30 years of being in the SEC, like, where would those programs be? It's a fascinating question. So yeah, very timely for them. Very fortunate for them, and very good luck that it worked out that way to where they're in as secure of a spot as you could possibly be. So, yeah, very, very interesting what if. If we could have a what if of college football, that might have a little place in there for sure.
All right, Garrett, great stuff.
what was that other one earlier from just 1 second ago?
Emiliano was asking about the Pac-12.
I wanted to circle back to that because we just talked about it very briefly. He was asking about Stanford and Cal, and like we said, there's just no interest, reciprocated interest there between those two and the Big 12. But as far as the rest of that conference, I think it remains to be seen. I was telling Garrett, I was like, man, it's almost like we hit the mute button or something, because I look at my timeline compared to what it was like the last month, and it's almost like it's in slow motion, it feels like, because so many things were flying around. But I think the Big 12 is just waiting. They've got options, and like so many others, even though they might have a better idea now of what direction they're going, I think with the ACC thing in play and with the Big Ten, will they or won't they? Or what did Cal do? What does Stanford do? What's the Mountain West doing? There's a lot of moving parts, and as far as the Big 12 goes, they don't have to be the one to make the move that, like they were with the adding of the four corners. They can kind of sit back right now and wait. And so I think that's what they're doing. And depending on what lever gets pulled, they're ready to pull one of their own, one direction or another. But it all does depend somewhat on kind of what else is going on around them. And I think that we need a little bit more time to see what exactly is shaking loose there.
All right, Garrett, great. Levi Caraway.
Emiliano.
Yeah, thank you, Emiliano, for that question. Does not have to be a super chat. We'll try to get to it. Also, thank you again to Emery Winter. Paul, I don't know whether he will be chosen for jury duty or not. It's getting kind of late in the day. If he is, he won't be around for a long time because it looks like it might be a pretty long trial. But we'll be back. Craig and I'm out tomorrow because I have that pretty monstrous presentation to give to a great company here in Waco. This is 365 Sports.